I want to have money so I can invest in something like StreamYard so we can add customized stuff. So as we go live, as we come in to all the viewers out there who are watching live, there would be like some type of
Mm.
music, and then we'd
Mm.
be like,
Dancing to it,
yeah,
like Dieter.
that's right.
Now is the time on Sprockets when we
That was
dance.
that was the time
Yeah.
we thought, yes.
Yep.
Sprockets.
Yeah. See, I know Dieter and Sprockets.
Oh yeah, and he was did he have another? Did Dieter have another catchphrase, or was it a different character that he did?
I don't know.
For some reason, my mind just suddenly shifted to Phil Hartman, who did a character that would go sassy.
Yeah, that's Phil Hartman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then he had Simon. Well, you know, my name is Simon, and I like to do drawings.
Which was a real thing.
Cheeky monkey,
There was
bum
a
looker.
there
Yeah,
was a little
that's
animated short that would play during
right.
some, like on NPR. I don't know if it was during Electric Company or during Sesame Street or just something that was separate, but it would be Simon. And it was very like, I think it was like black screen with white
Hmm.
stick figures basically. But yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I like to do drawings, but I don't think the Simon on those animated shorts, I think that's where the song comes from.
Yes, but he did
I
his
don't,
own thing on it.
yeah, I don't think he ever called anybody cheeky monkeys or
And
Drew
see,
from the bath or anything like that.
Simon and Dieter, and of course Wayne's World. Seems like
Oh,
there was another character that he did that like must not have gone over because it was only once or twice. But
yeah.
I can't quite remember what it was. It was about the same time as Dieter.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to, there's a pod, I don't know if you've listened to the podcast that Dana Carvey and
Mm-mm.
who's the other guy? David Spade. They do a
Right.
podcast and it's called like Fly on the Wall, and they interview celebrities, all their celebrity friends, and so a lot of them are folks from Saturday Night Live, and so they talk a lot about those days and how that time back then with the Wayne's World and the church lady and all that stuff, it was all about the catchphrase.
Mhm.
And what is the guy's name? The dude from back then who would acting. What was his name?
I'm not sure. Nothing's that's not triggering a memory.
Yeah. Anyway, the story doesn't make sense if you don't know who he is, and I can't think of his name. He was the only other thing I can think of him being in was he was the scout in
Nolan?
A League of Their Own.
Was it Kevin Nolan?
No, Kevin Nealon, no.
Nealon?
It he was kind of an overweight guy with black hair. John Lovitz.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. He was always, because he had a catchphrase. He had the guy that was that would lie all the time, and he had a catchphrase that became popular for a little while. But I guess he was always chasing that next catchphrase. They would be in restaurants and stuff, and he'd say something dumb, and he'd go, "Oh, that'd be a catchphrase. You think I could write a sketch around that?" Yeah, just that was funny. Anybody watching live? Hello. We didn't introduce ourselves 4 minutes and 15 seconds ago. When
If you're watching, you know who we are.
that's right.
Did you know people like yeah, his name just left me. Iron Man in the movies. You know, he was on Saturday Night
Robert
Live.
Downey Jr. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was on there with Elaine from
Yep.
they were on there together for like I think a year. I think
Yeah.
he
It
was
a
only on there
season,
like
yeah.
way early, like the fourth or
And-
fifth season. It was
And it might actually be because I know that Lauren Michaels left for a season or two. And
Yeah.
that might have been around that time.
Right. They came in when but yeah, if you look through like from from the period that we're talking with Dana Carvey, David Spade, that's probably the mid to late 80s. If you look from there back, some of the names are like fundamental comedy names in the U.S.
Yeah.
That unless you were a really, really big fan, you didn't necessarily know they were on there because they were only on there a season or two, unless you were definitely watching it then, which the early years are kind of...
Billy Crystal was on there for a season.
Yep.
What was that guy's name? I can't even think of his name now. Oh, well.
And then, the not ready for primetime players started it, but then you had Joe Piscopo. You had Eddie Murphy. Although Eddie Murphy, he had a run. It was like 5 years, something like that. So, but it just, I don't know. It after the Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, David Spade years, it just seemed the people that have been on there may be good, but it didn't help them do anything with their career. Since being on Saturday Night, they haven't waylaid that into anything big.
There are people like Will Ferrell.
Yes. Okay.
Kristen Wiig.
The
Sandberg.
Norm Macdonald, I think it definitely helped him.
Yep.
So yeah, you're right. There are a handful, but yeah, I mean when I think the first 10 years, the people that came off that show, it's like, wow, we would have had whole years of like no movies without those actors, because they they were in everything and they were all the biggest movies, and so
there just would have been going to see a bunch of dreary
action movies, rom-coms, or they wouldn't have been these blockbusters.
Serious action movies, not even funny.
Oh, yeah,
What's the point of that?
Yeah, why go see a serious movie? Pick up the newspaper if you want to see serious.
Right, you got to be able to laugh when they're blowing stuff up. That's why I will still love to this day. I just watched it last year. I try to watch it once a year. Last Action Hero. It's like one of my favorite movies, and it's so stupid. And he's got just the best dumb lines in that. Rubber baby Bobby bunkers. You didn't think I was going to say that, did you?
Yeah, absolutely.
They go to the funeral of Louis the Fart, somebody like that. His name was the Fart, and he stands up there and he goes, "Oh, he was a good man, a flatulent man." It's just such a stupid movie, but I just love it. It just celebrates everything that was cheesy about action movies back then.
Yep,
so good.
Speaking of movies, I had a really hard time getting ready this morning for this because at 10 o'clock, somebody started showing Transporter 2. The best Transporter movie, one of the best Jason Statham movies. So
what, your wife had started watching it and you were like...
No, I was watching it. It was on.
It was on like on TV or like...
Yeah, it was on TV on, I don't know, one of the channels, but... It had commercials, so it's like,
Well, yeah, but there's just something. Star Wars, for example, I could watch Star Wars when the original movie. I could watch it whenever I want to. It's sirens.
Yeah, I was gonna say I hear something. Hopefully, it's not your house.
No, well, I'm podcasting so hard.
Yep, no doubt.
Don't even notice the flames.
Half the house is missing. Yeah, why did the breeze pick up? Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, Star Wars. It's streaming on on Disney Plus. I have the DVD. I have the VHS. I could watch it whenever I want. But
it doesn't matter.
I don't. I just never watch it. However, if I'm on live TV and I stumble across it,
that's where it stays. Oh yeah,
absolutely. Special about that. There's just something special about it.
There are those handful of movies that it's like, well, no, I don't look for it, but if I happen to be messing around and see it, that's where it stays. That that movie wins.
And there are movies that I, kind of like and see them all the time. going through Netflix or whatever. Nah, I don't want to watch that right now. Nah, I don't feel like it right now. Nah. But if I caught it on live TV, I'd be like, oh, I got to watch this movie.
That's it. Yep. It's already on. I don't have to do anything.
Right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, oh, the commercials are nice because it gives me a chance to get up and go to the bathroom. I don't have to feel bad about pausing the movie with the other people in the room every time.
Maybe do some other things you can mix in doing the other things you wanted to do because you could focus on that during the commercials. And then, because
if you just pause the movie, you feel like you're delaying it.
Yeah. Well, it's
whereas with the commercials, you're multitasking.
It's built in. Whatever else it is, it's built in. Yeah.
That's right. God knows I don't watch the commercials. I hate the commercials have gotten so bad these days that I just Well, and the funny thing about commercials is every other commercial is a song I grew up with. Right. And now they're playing it like it's some new cool thing. And I'm like, dog, I was listening to that in junior high. I bought that album. Yes, album. Okay. So they're like, I like that song. It's so popular. Yeah. 40 years later. It's destroyed an entire jingle writing industry. Gone are the days when a product would have a catchy jingle.
Right. They don't need it. Well, we'll just go back because these are the people whose money we want. We'll go back for them and pull something that was popular for them when they were young, and we'll just use it. Yep. Either a commercial or a theme or actors or, it's like, we just live in a big retro world. Everything 40 to 50 years old is new again.
I know. Yep. All righty then.
Take this thing off. Drive me crazy.
I do this every time. I haven't even opened my Audacity yet.
I'll just go sans hat. I have mine here and hello, and it is recording. So
hello.
I'm good to go.
I get up early because I take Rana to work on Saturday mornings, most Saturday mornings, and so I wake up. I usually wake up at least 2.5 to 3 hours before we have to leave. Mm-hmm. And so I'm able to, I sit down, I read the comic that we're going to talk about. I get if I haven't put the notes together yet during the week, I do that. And then I get everything ready. I pull up everything I need. I log into StreamYard. All I got to do is sit down and go bloop. And I'm ready to go at 10:30. And the one thing I keep forgetting to do is to open Audacity, which is probably there's a tie for the most important thing about doing this, and that's one of the things.
Recording audio is pretty high on the list as a need for a podcast. Yeah, a host maybe is probably the most important, and then after that, you need to capture that audio somehow.
Yep. Of course, the way I've been losing episodes recently, it's
I
think it was all that. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It got fixed.
Oh yeah. Yep. All right. Let's take about 10 seconds to record the room. Is your Audacity going?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh shit! I messed it up.
You lose. You're a loser. All right, that's probably enough. Technically, we only need a couple seconds, but I like.
Yeah, but I'm sure the more the more useful it is.
Yep. All right. You ready to start recording?
I am ready to go, sir.
Bah. I'll tell you, I'll save the weather for our banter.
Okay.
The following episode was recorded in front of a live streaming audience on Saturday, March the 15th, 2025. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 83, the mirror cracked. Hello and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and got more sirens going by.
Mm.
They're going out of town, basically.
From in town, out of town?
Yeah, the town is so small that, an ambulance, I think we have one fire truck. So a lot of them are from other counties. Okay. And so, yeah, it's like 3 blocks that way is the entrance to the town. It's about 6-7 blocks long. And then you're heading out of town. It's small. Yeah, we don't have our own police force. We don't have a gas station or anything like that. It's where my mom grew up and my grandma.
Okay. Yep.
Well, not me though. I didn't grow up here.
Go ahead and finish the intro and we'll get into
that. Hello and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore. Ed, how you doing?
Good to be here, sir. We were just speaking of small towns. In southern West Virginia, a small town is that fits within the curve of the road that has been cut between mountains through the hollers. So, you seemed, I don't know, embarrassed or that it was, you were whatever, that it was only 10 or 15 blocks long. Well, the small towns where I come from don't even frickin' have blocks, dog. It just, it's just a squash of houses because you've got mountain, train track, town, road, river, mountain. So we don't have the ability to plan a nice avenue, street, block, a quarter mile. Each block is a quarter mile long. No, we don't have that. We have, we can put a building here and a building there, and we can build a bridge and get one more over there on the other side of the river. And that is, Susquehanna or whatever you're going to call the town. That's it. So, people talk about small towns and watching TV. I've seen all of these different examples of the small town, and I'm like, dog, you come to southern West Virginia, man, and check out some of these coal towns.
Growing up, the town I grew up in was, the sign outside always boasted for the entire first 18 years of my life, population 3,500 and growing. I think it's about 4 to 5 times that by now. It's
wow.
It's
okay.
gotten quite big. But for me, that was a small freaking town, 3,500. And
yeah.
But then I remember the first time realizing how small the town my grandma lived in, which is where I'm living now, and it's pretty. Like I said, it's a small town, but the town that my wife grew up in and where my cousin was from is just literally like maybe 4 residential blocks with a handful of houses thrown amongst those blocks and a church. There was a small school and a community center there at one point, but it's gone. I mean, it's literally driving down the highway and you go, hey, there's a gas station. Was that a town? It just, boom, it's gone. And so for me, that's always been my example of a small town was that town there. And so, when TV people who write for TV they don't have a clue. They don't, here's our small town of Smallville. That's like 30,000 people or something. And it's like, that's not a small town.
Well, now, okay.
It's not New York.
Well, I was going to say, compared to New York City metropolitan area, it is a small town. For reference, you were talking about the town that you were born in, population 3,500 and growing. You said about 3 or 4 times that. So let's take 4 because that makes the math easy. So 35 and 35 is 70, and 70 times 2 is 14. Well, no, I did that wrong. Or did I? 35? No, that'd be, so it'd be about 140,000 people if it were 4 times that. We'll say 100,000 people in a town. My whole county that I live in is 55,000. That's the whole county. So, you know, any metropolitan area in the county where I live is less than 5 digits is the population for the, you know, the top 10 cities in Mercer County. They all come in under 5 digits. So, you know, just as I think that, I don't know, measurements like that or ways to compare just have been lost. People don't necessarily realize because all the TV shows and movies try to equate. They try to make it something people understand. And it's like, well, depending on where you're at, you know, you understand a metropolitan area like LA, Chicago, New York. Whatever. Not many people understand a metropolitan area like Bluefield, West Virginia, or Princeton, West Virginia, or even smaller. Like I said, you know, I'm in the hub of what used to be coal country, although it doesn't reflect it now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there were times where our little towns down here that have 8, 9, 1,000 people used to have 4,000 and 5,000 people, which is absolutely huge compared to now. I had sidewalks covered with people on weekends walking around, and you couldn't drive through because people were walking in the streets and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Now you see like 2 cars an hour drive through. So it's, you know, yeah, it's just, whenever I travel around and see towns, the first thing that I always wonder is why? Why did they pick here to set up, no matter what's left? You know, I always wonder why here. You were talking about the town that your wife was from. Why? Why did the people put their luggage down there and build whatever they needed to have a group of people? What was it? Was it that one person did it and so others like, well, we can do it here too? Or, you know.
It's, yeah. I mean, it's weird because you've got over here to the east of me is Topeka, which is our capital. Mm-hmm. And then to the west, you've got Lawrence, which is where KU is.
Okay.
And then west of that is Kansas City.
Okay. Between
those 3, you know, you got 2 big cities, a smaller city, and then between that, all that are just these pockmarked little towns that are just, you know.
Maybe they were way stops on the trip.
Yep.
To resupply, to a place to hang out for a bit, or
the only thing I can tell you about the town I live in now is that at one point during the days of the Old West, there were so many banks in this town, that it was considered the Wall Street of the West.
Okay, so there you go. One person, because of favorable tax considerations, let's say, built a bank. Word got out, and other banks were like, well, we need to build a branch there too, so we can either take advantage or so we can compete, whichever.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Stuff like that makes sense.
And so, real quick, just so I can tell you how wrong I was, I looked up the population of the town I grew up in. Mm-hmm. According to Wikipedia, based on the 2020 census, the population of the city was 6,400. So it's doubled.
Yep.
Now the town I'm living in right now, as of the 2020 census, we had 588 people.
Now that would qualify as a small town in my mind. That's small. I can show you a town in West Virginia that has a population of this many. Can you see my fingers? Yeah. This many. That is the official population in the town. This many. So, yep.
I think now I can't remember. I remember I asked a while back because I was watching the Cleveland show, and I can't remember now if it's set in Virginia or West Virginia. I think
Mm.
you're in Virginia, right?
No, I'm in West.
Okay, so then they must be set in Virginia. I think it was whichever one you were not in. That's where they were. And their show set. Stool Bend.
Stool Bend. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever heard of a town similar to that around here. So,
I just wanted to say real quick before we complete our banter segment. Today, when we're done recording, my daughter's at work. I got a living room and a big TV to myself. My wife's in her room watching TV. I am going to go ahead and start season 3 of Reacher today.
Oh, okay. We just watched episodes 5 and 6 last night.
Yeah. Are those the last two?
No, there's 2 more. There's 8 total for the season. And Reacher has already been given a 4th season. So there will be another.
Cool. Yeah, I had to buy something from Amazon yesterday. I need some more glass shields for my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to order it through Amazon, and it was like, hey, you can add $25.01 to get free shipping, or if you want to have a free trial of Amazon Prime, you can get your shipping free. And I said, well, I guess I'm watching Reacher.
Yeah, there you go. I guess it's time.
I guess I'm starting today. They're starting this week. So yeah, I'll be starting that tonight or after this. So
it's he's good. Oh, and also I don't know if you've seen it. The young protege that he has. You've seen the first 2 seasons.
Yes.
The young protege he has, the darker skinned girl that seems basically to be the equivalent, just not as muscular as him.
Yeah.
She's got a show coming out from Amazon, that character.
Nice.
Now, I don't know where in the timeline it fits. I kind of suspect it's going to be earlier than what we're seeing in the Reacher. But in episode, what was it? Episode, I forget, 5 or 6. She has about 15 minutes of the most badass I have seen in a TV show in a while. And I suspect part of it is to set her up for her show. But it's like, I have not seen dudes act and do some of the stuff she does in this scene. I'm like, cool. Yeah, okay, you go.
Cool. I like her. That's cool.
Yeah, I do too. Marissa, I think is her name. The character, Marissa. Yeah, but yeah. So good season so far. No spoilers, but for the first half of the first episode, don't be thrown off. Don't let them bait you. Okay. Maintain what you think you know about Reacher, and just hang on to that, and everything will be okay. Don't be thrown.
All right. Because I'm easily thrown. I'm easily dissuaded.
Don't do it. Just keep in your mind. I know you're up to something. Just.
When you watch a show or a movie and you're thinking to yourself, when the twist or the reveal comes up, and you're thinking, how did anybody not know that? I mean, it was so telegraphed.
At times,
I'm the person who didn't. I'm who they're writing for. That's okay. I'm of that demographic.
Yeah, no, I'm very much into the, well, I don't know, but they haven't written the character this way up until now. Now, it doesn't mean the character hasn't changed from one season to the next or whatever, but it's like, this is fishy because this character wasn't like this before. So why are they doing it now? So I kind of,
first episode.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. To start the story. Yeah. You're like, huh? Even we at one point we were like, I was like, check and make sure. Yeah. And she's like, no, this is I'm like, okay, all right, that's cool.
I'm very glad. I'm actually very glad you said something then.
Yeah, because
I would have been the same way. I would have stopped it and started doing a bunch of research to see.
Right. Am I watching what I think or what?
Yeah.
What is it? Yeah.
Did I miss an entire? Did I even watch season 2? What? Yeah.
You just give it time, and then it'll be the Reacher that you were expecting. Yeah.
The problem is that it's not like that hasn't happened to me before, where a new season of something comes up and I'm really excited and I start it and I'm just lost. And then I go look and I said, I never finished the previous.
Oh, yeah. I didn't finish. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times too. I'm like, why is this so far here? And then I look and it's like, oh, because there were 3 episodes I didn't watch. Okay, that would do it.
Oh, and let me, I know I said last thing, but this is really literally the last thing to helpfully, to more better describe to anybody who doesn't live in the same area of the country I live in.
Okay.
When people talk about Kansas weather being, the joke is always, you don't like the weather in Kansas? Wait an hour, it'll change.
Okay.
Or just wait till tomorrow, it'll be completely different. 2 weeks ago, maybe, we had a blizzard.
Okay.
Below
about 2
zero.
weeks ago.
Yeah, below 0 degree temperatures. 2 days ago, it was 81 degrees outside, sunny, clear, beautiful day. Yesterday, the wind kicked up so bad. I got a wind alert warning on my weather app, which I rarely ever see. And it was so bad when we got up yesterday and left around 9:30 to take Rana to work. My car was covered in a layer of dust that wasn't there the day before because it was on the windshield and the windows and everything. And I was like, holy crap. And so, I turn on the wipers and all that junk and take her to work and come back. And then at one point I'm sitting here trying to work and I'm hearing what I think sounds like a train, but it's louder than it would normally be because we have some tracks a couple miles away. So on a clear day, I can hear the trains go by. And I realize it's just the wind rushing by the house.
Wow.
And so then when I leave yesterday evening to go get Rana from work, another layer of dust on the car that I had to clean off. And that's when I realized, because I stepped out of the house and immediately I could taste dirt. I could taste dust. And I see it on the car. And then I look up into the sky and it's, how the sky can get really gray just before it storms. And a lot of times it's because you're actually seeing a storm off in the distance. That's what it looked like. But instead of gray, it was a light brown. Okay. And I realized it was just all the dust in the air. And if we lived, because Kansas has a reputation for being flat, we're in eastern Kansas. It's very hilly in eastern Kansas. If we were in western Kansas, I just have to imagine that just everything would be under a few inches of dirt by the time that windstorm finished. Because it was, I can't believe we went from below 0 temperatures and a blizzard and an ice storm. I forgot to add that. To 81 degrees and sunny to the middle of the Dust Bowl.
Okay. Well, out here, out east, I have seen video of like the dust storms that will blow through the western part of the U.S. And I mean, it looks just like what we would see as a rainstorm here, but it's like no, it's dirt that's been caught up in the winds, and so okay.
It's been a crazy few weeks here in Kansas. All right, banter complete.
Yes, sir.
Close the door on it. Jukunk. All right, today we are looking at The Man of Steel #5. This issue was published by DC Comics on September 11th, 1986. It's just a date you're never going to be able to see or say again in the same way that you could have before 2001. But the story is entitled The Mirror Cracked ... That's at least the second or third title in this 6-issue series that ended in ellipses. Maybe just a second. Anyway, it was written and penciled by John Byrne. Dick Giordano was the inker. The letters were by John Costanza. The colors were by Tom Zucco. And let me tell you what happened in the issue. LexCorp scientist Dr. Tang has created a duplicate of Superman using data collected by sensors within Luthor's office. His data shows that Superman is not human or a mutant and must be an alien, a revelation he shares with his employer. Because Superman's cells are alien, the duplication process fails, and the creature, wow, I said that really weird, didn't I? I was thinking, look at the word that comes right after creature. Created. I was thinking of creature and I did it again, creature and created at the same time.
Yep.
That's whew. If you've ever heard my 5-minute blooper reel of me just trying to say the word effortlessly, which I don't have too much of a problem saying if I'm just saying it. It's reading the word. I can't do it. It's weird. Anyway, because Superman's cells are alien, the duplication process fails and the creature created takes on a bizarre appearance. After Luthor orders the creature removed from his sight, it begins assuming Superman's duties. It possesses his power and memories, but doesn't appear capable of speech. The creature stops a suicide attempt by Lucy Lane, who is now blind after an accident caused her to lose her sight. When the creature shows up at the Daily Planet in Clark Kent's clothes, the real Superman rushes to meet the creature before his identity is exposed. Superman and the creature then fight it out on the streets of Metropolis. The creature eventually sacrifices itself when it realizes that a chemical byproduct of its creation is responsible for restoring Lucy's sight. When the creature is destroyed, the fallout of its body particles complete the process, restoring Lucy's vision. Ed, what'd you think of this one?
Okay. Now I am completely convinced that reading this story by itself with no knowledge of Superman would be very, very difficult, or perhaps even disappointing, when you found that there was so much more information that was part of the Superman mythos than what 5 issues is able to tackle. My knowledge of Superman is not in depth at all, but it is there because of a handful of years of reading comic books, and so just exposure. And after reading this book, I definitely got the feeling that John Byrne isn't trying to tell a story. He is trying to do something else with the series. Now, what it would be felt that he is trying to do could be described in any manner of ways, but the coherency of a story from issue 1 to the end of issue 5 to a large extent is not there. The coherency is there from the beginning of an issue to the end of an issue. Any book so far reads just fine. But other than those main things, a character, a setting, those would be the 2 things, maybe supporting characters. Those are the only connecting fibers between the books. It doesn't even necessarily feel like a part of the life of Superman necessarily, because between issues, there just aren't enough connections. And this issue, just more so than any of the previous so far, really brings home that John Byrne is trying to do something, not even in addition to, because as a story, these 5 issues don't read very well as one story. So he is obviously trying to do something else. And using what knowledge I do have of Superman, my thought is that he's just trying to hit some main points and tell you what those points are now, as opposed to what they may have been previous to Crisis on Infinite Earths. And so then the series almost starts reading more like a series of encyclopedic entries rather than stories, rather than yarns that are being sewn by the creator. So It's issue 5 made me adjust my thinking about what I will assume at this point will maintain through the end of the 6th issue, which is the final issue of this series we have yet to read. So I think I stated this last episode. I cannot recommend that someone start with this series if they know nothing about Superman. This is not going to be, although now understandably people wouldn't do that anyways because he's changed another 2 or 3 times since then with, quote unquote reboots, whatever, New 52, whatever you want to do. But for this period of time, it would be really hard to say, oh yeah, the mid 80s. Well, you should start with. I don't know that this series will come to mind. Now, if you're a Byrne fan, yes, pick up the book, eyeball his art. It's outstanding, I think. But the storytelling, I don't know if this was my only example that I could even say that John Byrne is the best comic book writer I can think of. His writing. I have not read his Fantastic Four. I did read his run on Hulk, and it was fine. I believe it comes after this. Or Hulk? Hulk. I think he also did a short stint on Cap. Did he do a 5 or 6 issue run on Captain America, which was okay too? Again, I believe that was after this. But this, I don't know. This was, the issue was okay. How it fits in with everything, I don't know. You could pick up the series and not have issue 5, and I don't think you would be out anything if you read 1 through 4 and then 6. So there's my unfavorable initial thoughts.
I completely agree with, I think, pretty much everything you've said. Man of Steel, this 6-issue miniseries, rather than take 6 issues to tell one story that basically the goal would be to set the new what is it called?
Status quo.
Set the new status quo. So goal number 1 is to set the new status quo, explain the rules basically, just to just get folks kind of in this new universe, in the headspace of this new universe. However, John Byrne, rather than doing it in one story spread out over 6 issues, he does it in 6 stories. Mm-hmm. Each story gets an issue. So it's like 6 moments within the first, well, I guess if we want to say Superman's career, because once he comes out as Superman, he makes his debut. This is supposed to, there's some real confusion about the timeline here, because Lois Lane at some point makes mention that she's been trying to get Superman to kiss her for 5 years. Okay. So that would have you think, well, then this issue takes place 5 years after Superman made his debut. But according to the entry in Mike's Amazing World of Comics, he notes that quote by Lois Lane stating that it must have been an exaggeration. The 5 years must have been an exaggeration by Lois Lane, because based on the timeline as it's laid out, this issue takes place 3 years after his debut as Superman. And I think, I don't know when issue 6 takes place. I feel like it's not, there's not a time jump from this one to the next one. And then from there, we go to Superman number 1, which I think takes place 3 months after Man of Steel number 6. So ultimately the way I kind of look at this is that John Byrne really wanted to start with Superman 3 to 5 years into his career.
Right.
That's where he wanted. He didn't want to start with a new, just trying to figure it out Superman. Superman kind of knows what he's doing at this point. He still has some stuff that he may not, haven't run into before, some new things that might pop up now and again. He may still make some mistakes, but he's not a complete newbie.
Right.
But DC was like, yeah, but you gotta retell his origin and stuff. And so he was like, all right, I'll just do this.
No, you don't. The comic book readers are not the idiots that people want to think that they are.
I feel like there's a reason that these issues were coming out every 2 weeks. Granted, I guess once he gets into the regular series, he's still doing 2 Superman books a month because he's doing Superman and Action Comics.
Right.
But still, I don't know. I think it's my firm belief that he may never admit it, but Man of Steel was just his, I just got to get this shit on paper so I can move on to the stories that I really want to tell.
Right, to what I want to do. Yeah, in order to do what I want to do, they said I have to do this first. So here it is. Yeah, it definitely has the feeling of him cherry picking what he wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and you kind of got to look at each issue and kind of say, okay, so what was the point then, I guess, of this story?
Right.
And before we really start digging in deep to the issue, my overall feeling, the point of this story was DC and John Byrne saying, remember all the crazy stuff that used to happen in Superman before Crisis on Infinite Earths? Characters like Bizarro, who is just a silly, crazy character who, yeah, sure, in the right hands of a writer could be a very scary, creepy, bad, evil kind of character. But in general, the idea behind Bizarro was kind of silly. Well, you're not getting any of that in this post-crisis. And we're going to show you by introducing you to one of the silly characters and then killing him off before the end of the issue.
Yeah.
I think that's their way of going, nope, none of this crap. But I don't feel like it's very long before Mixie's Pitlick shows up. So who knows?
Well, that, I would almost, or not almost, but I was kind of surprised that he wasn't really the first of the big Superman bad guys that Byrne would want to use, because I would suspect that Mitzi Pitlick would be a lot of fun, given that you have to introduce somebody, you have to do something.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a fifth dimensional imp and have him, but as an aside about Bizarro, did you see recently, the last 3 or 4 years, where they used Bizarro as a protagonist as opposed to an antagonist? He was part of a group.
No,
and he was the Superman in the group. And the group wasn't a bad group. Now,
was it like one of those multiverse groups or?
No.
Oh.
No, I believe it was contemporary DC characters kind of group that used Bizarro in it. Maybe they were a substitute Justice League or something like that. And anybody out there that is losing their mind because I'm wrong, that's fine. I freely admit that my knowledge of DC may well be lacking, but just I do the best I can with what's up here. So
that's all we can do. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
I'll look into that, but yeah, it's when it comes to the new stuff, unless it's G.I. Joe, Transformers, or Thundercats.
Yep.
I did read that new Herculoids issue.
I haven't read it yet. I want to read that. Yeah.
All right. I'll
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely a trend here lately, although if you look, it's been going on for the past 3 or 4 years, of grabbing these old cartoon / toys and throwing them back out there and seeing how they do. I don't know what the expectation is. You can take Silverhawks or Herculoids and make them look cool, but I don't know if they're going to appeal to current readers. Us nostalgia readers, it's a different thing. But Thundercats, the Powerpuff Girls from the 90s, Speed Racer has a new book coming up. They seem to be hitting this nostalgia thing pretty hard. lately,
Yeah.
and it's interesting.
It's like they've just started to realize that uh, their their reader base continues to age. They,
Mhm.
they're not getting as many new readers
Right.
as they're maintaining this readership base that keeps getting older and older. And then it's like they've suddenly realized that nostalgia is a big thing now. And so it's like,
It can work.
what did all these guys watch back
Yep,
in the day?
absolutely.
And
That's it.
the only thing I'll say about this Herculoids issue, because I'm going
Hmm.
to read the next one.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say is if you are expecting this issue to be just like one of the cartoons in regard to, basically what happens,
Hmm.
that's exactly what you're going to get. So you will not be disappointed.
Okay. Well, cool. Cool.
If you're looking for something that's going to be completely different, you're going to be disappointed.
No, there's no reason to be completely different. What the Herculoids are and did, it worked. So why
The
change
only
that?
the only thing that they I want to say changed, because when the Herculoids was when they first had a cartoon was in the 60s, and the planet they lived on was called Asmot.
Hmm.
And then in the 80s there was a Saturday morning cartoon called the Space Stars, and it was an anthology show, and one of the shows in it was Herculoids, but they were new shorts that they created for this show in the 80s. And they had the planet called God, something completely different. Now I can't. Now I it was in my head just a moment ago. It was a completely different name, and it's
Okay.
the name that, if the funny thing is, it's the name I grew up with. So Quasar, that's right, Quasar.
Okay.
Well, in the comic book they refer to the planet as a planet by many names, and
Okay.
two of the names they include are Quasar and Asmot. So it's like, all right, well, that was an easy fix. Click.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
It's all goes together. All right. You want to, are there any deep divey areas you want to take? You want to do the whole issue, or
Yeah, we'll just start going through it.
the splash page is, I will say that of the 6 issues, this is probably my favorite splash page, because I love the stark white background. There's just something about that I love. And then,
It gives you nothing other than the main
right,
part of the draw to focus on. There is nothing else to draw your attention. So, if you like Burns' art and you like Superman, this is going to be it. Pull out the box of tissues and have at it.
Yeah.
If now if you don't like one or either of those, you're like, oh, turn the page, hurry up. So yeah. And it is an awesome front drawing of Superman in John Byrne's style. If you are familiar with John Byrne, you look at this picture and you can automatically tell that that's who, at the very least, drew it. I would even go so far as to assume he inked it, but I don't believe he did. Dick Giordano inked it. So it really maintains a lot of his pencil work character.
Yep.
So the inking was a pretty light effort. Giordano didn't really seem to put a whole lot of himself, unless maybe he did over here with the Luthor armor that Superman is holding. But the character of Superman himself, it looks Byrne completely.
Giordano knows how to ink Byrne, basically. It's funny too, because you look at that and, like, you look at Superman and there's not, like you said, that's not a lot of lines. You look at the face, not a, it's what needs to be there is there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a good chance that if we saw the pencils to this page, there might be a lot more. Byrne tends to put a lot of lines on his stuff.
Yeah.
And some inkers do like this, where they just leave a lot of that out. And frankly, I'm a big fan that just use the bare minimum lines that are necessary. I'm not a big fan of unless we're looking at something like that's a technical, like this
right.
suit of armor. Not a big fan of a lot of lines, but
yeah. I mean, hopefully, and you'll find this, I think, with most artists, the longer they do it, the less lines that they include. And I've noticed that, unfortunately, in a lot of the artists that I would consider my favorites, is that when I compare what really got me into them to either now or what turned out to be the end of their career, it's like, wow, there is such a... If this is what I was exposed to then, I would not have been as big a fan now as so it's like, well, it's a good thing a lot of these artists that I really like, I was exposed to in their prime when they had the time and they were willing to spend the time at their drawing board drawing.
Yeah.
A lot of these big name artists, if you looked at their current penciling, it's nothing more than a sketch that they give the inker, and then assuming whoever the artist is, the inker knows what to do to make it look like and it's like, so the inkers, if you guys don't feel that your art is being recognized enough, latch onto an old creator. That way you have plenty of room to add your embellishes to their pencils, their line work. So this first splash page to open the story, Superman facing us, holding up and probably shaking as he's speaking to emphasize what he's saying. A suit of the Luthor armor from Power. What was that miniseries?
The Superpowers collection.
Yeah, isn't that where this first showed up? Because I guess they did a figure of it first, and then they wanted to include it, so it was drawn into the story. But the big, bulky green and purple armor that I know all of us have seen somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Even if it was in toys that we may have got. But that's the armor. Did this show up in Crisis? No, it didn't show up in Crisis, did it?
I don't think so. I don't remember. I know that it's shown up often. Even nowadays, if Luthor dons armor, it's going to be green and purple.
Yeah. Even most recently when Luthor was leading the superheroes because Superman was down and out, he was wearing this armor.
That's right.
So that's like within the last, 3 to 5 years, it still is showing up. All these, what is this, 40 years later? So, yeah. And it works. The colors, green and purple.
Those are they're bad guy colors.
Well, yeah, first of all. But they work as armor. You got the big bubble head. The head, I think, has kind of changed over the years more than anything else about the armor itself.
And of course, the great thing about it is, if you are even a passing Superman fan, you look at this page and you assume that Superman is holding Luthor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that when it starts out, it's like, oh, well, he caught Luthor doing something using this armor, and we're going to find out what when we turn the page.
So on the one hand, you're like, all right, Luthor's got that book 5. Luthor's got the armor on. Then you turn the page and you go, oh, okay.
And Luthor doesn't have the armor on because he's sitting here in front of a desk, of course. If he's not in the armor, that's where Luthor would be, in an office sitting behind a desk. And so it turns out that Superman caught a flunky of Lex's doing something that he wasn't supposed to do, doing it somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. And he's confronting Luthor because Superman knows through his Supermanish powers that everything associated with this suit of armor points back to LexCorp, which is Luthor's suite of businesses, shall we say. It's not just a single business, but the manufacturing of everything. I think he even says that the person in the armor, which of course now we find out is not Luthor, is a man that works for Luthor. And in the course of the conversation, in typical Luthor fashion, he already knew that Superman would be able to come to that conclusion. So he already had things in place to prove that very logical conclusion wrong even though it was the most logical conclusion. Yes, all of these things trace back to my companies, but if you'll check, all of these parts have been listed as missing, having been stolen as far as we know. We have no record of why they're not where they're supposed to be. Oh, and you're right. This dude, he worked, past tense, for me. A couple weeks ago, we let him go, so he doesn't currently. So all of the equipment doesn't belong to me or my people. This man does not work for me. So, it's an opportunity for you to see that though he may not physically be able to beat Superman, Luthor is always planning that Superman will know or Superman will find out. And so then he has to be ready for that situation if he is confronted by Superman with this knowledge. He has to be able to dispel the connections that are accurate. Luthor introduces accurate to a point. And that point is always what will separate Superman from Lex Luthor. Seldom, even to this day, seldom will Superman be able to say, I saw you do something. I heard you say something like that. Every now and then it comes up that is what happened. But typically, Superman, although he's not dumb, he's not unintelligent, his strengths are his body, his strength. Luthor doesn't have that, so his strength is in his head. He is the bad guy's Batman. He has plans for plans for plans. He spends time trying to outthink you, and even though you think, that that's what he's going to try to do, to outthink you. So you try to outthink him. He's already figured that out, and it's like an exponential. He has plans to the fourth power, where you come up with plans to the second power. So
and there's at least a second level to this plan, because not only does he have to think of how to disconnect any connections between this armor and the guy inside it with Luthor, in case Superman survives, or
right.
maybe he dies and the authorities start putting those connections together. But we learned fairly quickly that even sending the guy after Superman in the armor, his intention was not to kill Superman. It was to get him in that office.
Right. For that confrontation.
Yep.
So that he had an opportunity to prove. I don't know that he proved it, but to show Superman that he's smarter.
Yeah. Plus he's scanning Superman.
Right. Which is, that is the reason to draw him in. What can I do to draw him in?
Yep.
And like the synopsis said, while Superman is there, Luthor and his prime scientist, Teng, Teng, surrounded the office with sensors of various types, so that when Superman came in, essentially they would have the ability to gather every possible bit of information about Superman physically.
Yeah.
So they're running, I'm sure, chemical and all kinds of radiation-based scans, everything about Superman's physicality that they can get, as far as the makeup, not necessarily how it works, but what it's made of.
Yeah.
So cellular, the even to the extent that they apparently are able to duplicate Superman's personality, which may or may not have been effective. But I mean, the equipment they have, they feel they're able even to do that. However you scan the makeup of someone's psyche, record it, and then transfer it over to whatever else. They even believe that they are able to do that as well as the physicalness of him.
Yeah, and I want to say, well, Superman has been active for 3 years at this point. Now, granted, Lex was in South America for like the first year to year and a half,
18 months.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible that for the past year and a half that Luther has been. This isn't the only opportunity Luther's had to
Right.
gather data, and so just interacting with Superman, if he's recording just the social interactions, I guess they can composite some kind of personality through that and imprint it on a. I don't know. It's getting a little high level at that point. But I want to look at page 2. Look at that first panel on page 2. You got Luther behind his desk.
Mm-hmm.
And next to the desk is a computer on a stand with wheels.
Right.
About 3 minutes ago, you were talking, and I happened to look over at that, and my first thought was, why does he have a barbecue grill in his office? Did it look like a grill with the hood down?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah, on wheels, no less.
Yeah, it's just missing the gas tank down there.
Yep. Talking about copying the psyche of someone, even our current AI models cannot do that. That's why AI is predictive.
Yeah.
So even now, that is something that in reality we can't even do really successfully. So
I mean, I guess it says something that this duplication, this bizarro duplication that they created, not only was obviously the body was failing, crystallizing, the brain, obviously it didn't speak. It had one goal in mind, and that was to be Superman. It's like they didn't quite get his entire brain scan into this thing. It's just more of the ideals of who Superman is. And I think Superman fights bad guys. He does good. But then again, you know what? I just realized the thing knew that Superman's Clark. Lex doesn't know that. Tang doesn't know that. How did
he didn't know he was Clark, I don't think, but he knew that he had a civilian identity like that.
Wore a suit and glasses.
Yeah. So
and he knew who Lois Lane was. He knew,
some aspects of the brain were duplicated, even if it was.
It's a comic book.
Yeah, instincts. It was able to duplicate the instinctual, but it was not able to duplicate anything creative. The brain could not create. It could just mimic.
The one thing that I think that they missed in this issue was if they could have somehow even gotten a skin cell off of Superman, I think a lot of this we would just accept. The fact that they're creating a duplicate based off of just passive scans, because they're not penetrating his body with anything that he would notice.
He would know something. So, who knows that they didn't pick up skin cells from where it was in the office? I mean, humans drop skin cells all the time. So I don't know about Kryptonians, but
they may have, but that's something that should have been mentioned.
Well, that would be more a clone than a simulacrum or whatever they call. I mean, they don't really call it what it is. I don't know what you consider, but apparently it wasn't a clone, or else I would assume that Byrne would have used that word.
Yeah. So that was a word that was in use in '86. So would have used clone. Yeah.
So the culmination, Superman gets to the point. Well, you can say whatever you want, but when I get a hold of dude in the armor, he'll give me all the information I need. And Luther tells him, well, I guess then it's too bad that dude is dead, because you won't be able to talk to him. And come to find out, having the suit on kills the wearer. So how convenient.
Yeah.
Superman leaves Deadman in tow because he's going to, I don't know, take him up to the Fortress of Solitude and examine. I don't know what he's going to do. I would have thought he would have just left the body and left the armor. He knew everything about the armor that he wanted to know. Yeah. You can't get anything from the body. I guess, I don't know, take it whatever, but he leaves with it. And that's where we find out that, well, apparently there was more to this meeting than what we thought reading this so far, because Luther then goes, in the other room and is talking to his chief scientist. And you find out, well, we scanned every bit of Superman that we were able to, just like we had hoped. We have all that information. Let us parse it out, and we'll put it to use, doing what you hoped we would do with the information. But bear in mind, our models were all based on, when we put together what we needed to do, the mathematical model was, we will be doing this to a human who just has had some changes. And actually here, maybe one of the few places in DC that they use the word mutant.
Yep.
Because that's a Marvel word.
Yeah.
But the scientist says, our scans, they came up kind of odd. And when I looked at them, the human or mutant human that we had assumed is not what Superman is. He does not show as earthly, anything terrestrial that we know of. He doesn't show like that. So then, of course, that puts Luther kind of as an aside, but to thinking about the fact, so if he's not of this earth, he's extraterrestrial, which means ancient aliens, Giorgio Tsoukalos with the hair and all that. That's, Superman is supporting the ancient alien theory just right there. And so Luther is all over that, so, I can hear the plans. He's like, so I'll just make everybody realize that he's an alien and will become anti-alien. But that's another issue. That's down the road a bit.
I do find it interesting that it's, before Superman even knows that he's an alien, Luther knows.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, of course, they were wrong in their initial assumption. So, of course, it is possible now that they're wrong, too. Superman is something else. But as far as they can gather, he's not of this earth. Having green eyes and red hair, is Lex Luthor Irish?
You know what? I don't know. I do know that before the death of Superman, there was a storyline I never read. I'm only aware of it because of how Lex is in Death of Superman. But at some point, Lex, who spends years wearing a ring that has kryptonite in it to keep Superman away, he gets cancer from that kryptonite. Before he can die, they clone his body and put his brain into that body and pass this new healthy young Lex Luthor. They pass him off as his estranged son, who has long red hair. And that guy grew up in Australia.
Okay.
I don't know if that was because that's where the Luthors are from, or because they were estranged and that's just where he story was that he went to live.
I don't know that there is much truth to red hair and green eyes, but I just know that in popular culture, I believe that is assumed to be Irish, typically used Irish traits. Of course, you throw in the very fair complexion, red hair, green eyes, particularly in females. Apparently, that is the only type of female that is Irish is light complected, red hair and green eyes. It's a gimme across it. And I say that, of course, tongue in cheek, because I know that being a biologist by training, I know that there's billions of different genetic combinations. Anybody from anywhere can look like anything. There is no. Now you have percentages, most of the people are this or that or what. Yeah, okay. But saying something is definitive genetically is virtually impossible. So.
Well, and one of the last DC events I read, and I don't remember which one it was. I feel like it was, if it wasn't Final Crisis, it was, there was something that was going on tangentially that involved Lex Luthor, and what some folks caught on to, but others didn't, and they ended up pointing out later, was that there were two Luthors involved, and one was it was either Alex Luthor from Infinite Crisis or
Mm-hmm.
another multiverse Luthor. And the only difference between the two of them was that our Luthor had green eyes and the other guy had blue eyes.
Oh,
And
okay.
so when you go back and look at those comics, it's like, oh, you can see where this is the other Luthor because he's got blue eyes. Whereas, because they would have the same one in the book in different scenes that seem to tie together, and it's, you don't realize it's two different guys. And yeah,
Right.
I thought that was kind of neat. But
So we have a candy commercial here in between in the comic.
oh, do we? What's
Yeah,
the candy?
Bonkers.
Bonkers.
Chewy candy. So I'm not familiar with it.
It sounds familiar, but I don't remember being a big
Chocolate, fruit candy,
Ew.
or chocolate, strawberry, and watermelon are the 3 flavors, and it looks to be caramel with a softer inside that I guess is the flavor of whatever it's supposed to be. So, we have the reveal of this thing that they have made, which turns out to be a duplicate Superman. They're attempting to replicate him so that Lex Luthor has a Superman under his control, is what they're wanting to do. They don't know how to create a Superman, so they've used all this equipment to duplicate a Superman. Physically, he comes out looking exactly like Superman, the face, the costume, everything. But as the creature, I guess, is introduced, it just collapses. And so that Tang tells the Luthor, the chief scientist Tang, see, I told you that the potential was that it wasn't going to turn out the way we wanted it to because this alienness of Superman. And here, Lex Luthor throws a tizzy. He doesn't want any other results other than what he wants. He doesn't want excuses. He doesn't want explanations. He wants what he wants. And if that is not what turns out, then everything is problematic. You, the scientist, is problematic. All your equipment sucks. The result is shite. So he just goes automatically on this tirade, trashing everything about the process from beginning to end, including the end results.
Yeah, he's being a good little American CEO. It's, he can't look at it and go, oh, well, I guess that makes sense why this failed. Let's see what we can do. Let's recalibrate.
Right. Let's take this and see what we can do with this.
Instead, it's, this did not do what I wanted to do, and it's certainly not my fault. So it's got to be your fault.
Yep. And you will pay, and he will pay, and it will be, so basically he is like, okay, now from right after me to the end, we need to destroy all of this. That's you, that's the equipment, that's this thing, that's knowledge, that's information, get rid of all of it. And it's like, Lex, no, there's got to be something in there that you can use somehow if you just take a minute and just,
that frame of mind, it's like, I told you what I wanted. You didn't do it.
Yep.
It's cut and dry. It's that simple. You didn't do it. It doesn't matter that what I asked for, I either asked for it in the wrong way, or I asked for the impossible, or technically I got what I asked for. None of us accounted for this added bit of information, but still, it's not what I asked for. So kill it, destroy it. Shut it down.
I see this as kind of apropos, given our current situation. I believe our sitting felon in chief very much wants to govern using this methodology.
No doubt.
And that is why a lot of things are being done the way that they're being done, because this is the brain space I think that it's starting with. Yeah. And given that he is a lifelong businessman, it would kind of make sense that Luthor would exemplify that type of thinking. We see it here kind of, in a little bit extreme kind of situation. But I mean, if you look at what's been happening recently, that shit seems kind of extreme too. It's because the mentality is very, very similar.
Yeah, and it kind of nails home the fact that you know, because Luther's supposed to be a genius, you know, and obviously he has the brains to make the right decision.
Right.
Psychologically, though, he can't. That part of his brain won't.
When the human side, the emotional side comes into play, that's where Luther fails. As far as the intelligent side, no. I mean, he is absolutely thinking along the correct lines. We can't make, so let's duplicate what already exists. Well, then you just have to figure out how to do that, and he's not. We don't know how long this plan is been in effect, but apparently it's been long enough that the results were not what he wanted, and so he's ready to just trash the whole thing, which is interesting given the rest of the story. You would have thought that right here, if Dude didn't, some number of stooges would have been in the other room waiting with backpacks and flamethrowers to just come in and scour everything, just get rid of it all, because that's what Luther wanted.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how did they, you know, maybe Dr. Tang is the one that took charge of that, and his scientific brain said it's not a person, it's not alive, it's a machine, it's a thing, and it's broken down, it doesn't work anymore. Just throw it in a landfill. There's no reason to
it's just broke.
You know, and then it wakes up. I don't know. They don't explain that part. I find that kind of weird.
No. So jump break here to Lois and her sister. Her what? Her sister. It's a younger sister. And she's blind. She's what? She has a younger sister that's blind. Yeah, see, these are the kind of things that I'm like, what?
When I reread this for the first time 10 years ago, I remember getting to this page and going, did I skip an issue? You know, just what we were talking about before with seasons on TV that just start off all weird. It's like, because I mean, I knew that there was a sister named Lucy. They've mentioned it in other books over the last 25 years or so, but
they haven't mentioned it in this book.
Yeah, they haven't mentioned it in this book. And the fact that she is blind, they're making references to, you know, it just proves it's another, I guess, way of just showing that this story is what it is. Each story is a standalone by itself.
And the reason of this, the reason that he did this is so that moving forward, he could use the end result of her being in this story. That's what it was. Now, why he couldn't just introduce her as seeing, since they're rebooting, I don't know. It's like, well, why start with her blind if you don't want her blind? Yeah. So
it's like there's a lot of things he had to bend and twist. It's like he needs to make this point that this Bizarro Superman is, though he's crystallizing and he seems not to be all there, the core of Superman is still there within him, because once this creature realizes what's going on with his body and the effects it's having on Lucy, that's when it sacrifices itself.
I don't see that. I don't see that that's what it did. You can't convince me the way that this is written that is what this creature did at the end. He acted,
and they don't say it freely. Superman kind of goes, maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Well, and
we don't know.
If they didn't want you to think that, they wouldn't introduce it.
Yeah.
But no, I thought that the creature was acting fully within its programming. It was being as hostile as it knew how to be. And so, you know, ultimately that was using its entire body as a weapon. Okay, how is that different from what it had been doing? Okay.
It's a weird story point to add. It's like, we have to make Lucy blind so that we can establish the fact that Bizarro's skin heals her blindness.
Right.
But to what purpose? Because as far as I know, that's never paid off. And
so that she's not blind.
But
I mean, you know,
as far as I know, she wasn't blind in the comics post-crisis. So it's like,
well, why not just make her not blind to begin with if you want her to show up in the story so that you can establish she has a younger sister? Okay, well, she has a younger sister.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only reason to make her blind at this point is to give the story a reason to heal her using Bizarro.
A heroic sacrifice.
But nothing comes out of it. That's the weird thing. It's like, we got to make this character A so that it fits with B. We have to have B, but we can't have B unless character A is like this. So character A is going to be like this, even though character A was always the other way before. But now we're going to change it to this just so B can happen. And then once B happens, we'll never talk about it again.
Yeah, I just, yeah. So this whole page is, what is this, page 6, right? Or am I? Well, page 6 and 7. We're introduced to Lois Lane's sister, who is in town because apparently she has recently been rendered blind because of an accident. Don't know who, don't know where. We do know it involved chemicals, so I'm surprised that she didn't develop speed powers, because that seems to be the trend with chemicals in the DC universe. Yep. Or a mathematical formula that you say backwards. Do you say it backwards? I don't remember. But
dig Lois's orange jumpsuit though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is very fetching.
Very 80s.
Yeah. So younger daughter, and we can see that it has been recent enough that she has lost her sight, that despite what she may say, particularly to her big sister, the younger sister is not yet adjusted to the fact, particularly since she lost her sight. She was seeing, and now she is not. So it has been recent enough that has not become normalized in her brain yet, emotionally, I mean. And even to the extent that she makes some choices here in a couple other pages as well, we see that, wow, she really is not getting along with the fact that she has lost her sight.
Yeah, and it's at the point where she just assumes that if she can't see, then her eyes look weird.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, but I've seen a lot of people that can't see. You don't know what your eyes are doing.
Right.
So they do things physically weird compared to what sighted people do. So that's why a lot of blind people wear glasses, so that you don't fixate on the eyeballs and what the eyeballs are doing. And
despite Lois telling her that's not the case with her, her eyes look just like a seeing person's eyes. They're not pointing in different directions, none of that. But still she wears the sunglasses
because she's blind, and now they're weird.
Feel more comfortable. Yeah.
So a quick scene here of Superman being Superman. He notices a ambulance that has run into some physical problems. It gets a flat tire. It's carrying a patient. Can't get to the hospital now because the ambulance won't move. So Superman swoops in and picks it up and delivers it at the hospital. And the attendant, when he hops out of the van to thank Superman, you see something is off, because the attendant acts in a pretty odd way, alluding to what he sees in Superman. Now, interesting, there are 3 panels here at the top of this page where this occurs. In the left-hand panel, we can see part of Superman's neck, which appears very chalky white. Superman's outfit. In the right panel, we see a fleshy Superman with kind of a white patch on the other side of his neck. So either Superman is losing the coloring in his skin something. I don't know. Either they're doing something with the story, or there was a coloring mistake. I couldn't really tell which one it was.
it's bizarro. His skin is
Right.
crystallizing.
But, well,
Yeah,
and
he's trying to show some kind of transition, and it's just not coming across that great.
no, it didn't come, because you can see a reflection of Superman over here on the right-hand side, and it does start to look a little off. Something is off with the reflection, particularly given John Byrne's art. It's like, well, that's not how Byrne draws. Yeah. But it is just a reflection. And if you were just reading this, you wouldn't have noticed the chalky neck.
No.
First time I read it, I didn't notice that. Now, you take a second and read this, and you're like, well, what's wrong? And it gives you a chance to focus, and you're like, oh, maybe something. But we don't know that. Superman flies off. We cut back to Lois's younger sister, who is distraught enough that she decides she is going to commit suicide. And she jumps off the balcony of Lois's apartment. We have, let's see, what do we have? We have a laser tag ad as the sister falls.
Nice.
And then we have an ad for the Cosmic Boy miniseries that came out of the Legends storyline.
Okay.
Which I remember, I enjoyed that miniseries quite a bit. And now we see that Superman is catching Lucy. We're seeing that whatever this coloring issue is, and I say that because for years comic books have been rife when they were published with coloring issues. So the fact that they're trying to do something with coloring that we know has been off in the past doesn't work. It doesn't come across doing what you want to do, because we know in the past there have been examples of mistakes. And so if all you're relying on up to this point is the coloration, it's bad methodology, because there have been issues that render what you're trying to do non-noticeable. We see it as a coloring error. Now, with the previous appearance of this Superman, and now, the back of his neck is two colors. His hand over here is chalky white. Still, there could be some coloring issues, but it's happening too much. Over here where he's catching Lucy, it's chalky and flesh tone. So it's, okay.
See,
now...
That's really interesting, because you're looking at an original, correct?
Yes.
I'm looking at the, I guess the most recent collection that they put out. And so in the panel that we see him encountering the EMT, the first three panels those three panels at the top of the page.
Right.
What I see is the entire neck that you can see in that first panel, they've colored white.
Yes. Okay. That's the same here.
The hand is flesh colored in that panel.
Yes. What you can see of it, not much, but okay.
Yeah. In the third panel, all the flesh is flesh colored.
No, in the original, there's a patch where it's moving from like under the ear towards the back of his neck. You can see a patch of chalky. So now we go to the scene where he's catching Lucy. Both of his hands are colored both ways in this.
Yeah,
what do you see?
All flesh colored on this page.
Oh, on this, okay. His hands have patches of both. You can't really see anything in the next panel. In the middle panel, the back of his neck is chalky in the middle and kind of fleshy on either side. And then in the final panel, the hand that you see is chalky.
I have I think a couple of scans around here somewhere. Hold on just a second.
Okay. So basically, Superman, who we'll go ahead and assume now is not the appropriate Superman, though he has rescued Lucy, he sets her up. She tries to talk to him all through these 5 panels. There are 5 vertical panels that take up about half of that page at the top. She's talking, but this Superman never says anything. It never says, you're welcome for rescuing her. Doesn't do anything. It sets her down. She is blind, so, she doesn't know anything. knows it must be Superman because something caught her mid-flight, and Lois and probably the news, she knows that Superman exists. So she's assuming it's Superman. I don't know. Maybe when she wraps up around him, she can feel that his the muscle density is different. Maybe, I would assume, for Superman. I mean, who knows? He sets her down. She's blind. She tries to converse. He doesn't, and he just takes off. He turns around and jumps off of the balcony. And it's interesting that he knew which balcony to take her back to. Also, actually,
yeah, he must have saw her.
I don't know. He put her in somebody else's place, and it's going to be one of those scenes where she goes in and the couple is going at it on the bed and screams or something like that. That's,
This isn't even the same building. You took me across.
Oh yeah, right, across the alley. Yeah, he took her across the alley to that building. Yeah, who knows? Good luck, anything could happen there. Yeah. So he flies away, and then we cut to the next scene.
But she does make a comment about his skin. Being dusty.
Dusty, yeah. Why? And why do you feel so strange, so dusty?
Yeah.
Well, but for all she knows, that's the way Superman feels. I mean, Yep.
She did expect a lecture from him, though, and she didn't get one. Based on what Lois has told her about him, she expected a lecture of some sort.
So anything new from the scans you were looking at about the coloring?
No, the scans. It looked like somebody had. They looked like they had been recolored. So.
They corrected them from whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate when these newer reproductions, people feel that is necessary. They need to correct the color. It's like, okay, thank you.
I feel like, though, that I have seen exactly what you're talking about, and I have older collections. I'll just check real quick to see if it shows
maybe
up.
The first trade of this that came out would have still been colored correctly because it would have been recent to the original.
All right, let's see.
Pages 6 and 8 to 6 and 9. I'm on 10. So it would be.
Now this is the exact same coloring job as the.
Okay. Well, that's kind of disappointing because, so you don't get any indication reading the story in those until the reveal. I mean, you don't get any indication anything is going on.
No, but I had something at one point because I know when I talked about these issues for. Well, now they're part of the comic book show. I'm fairly certain I talked about the weird patches.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check one more place here real quick.
Yeah, we'll see here before the end of this story why it was colored like that. And it was not, like I say, the way that they're doing it really looked like it was possible that it was just coloring errors. Now, I will say, at this point, the mid to late 80s, DC is doing a fine job of coloring these books. I can grab some 60s and 70s Marvel comics that they made some bonehead mistakes in coloring. I mean, it's just blatant. Now, these that we've been reading from DC, they're colored pretty apt to what they should be.
You can't see it because of the light, but I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at now. These are original scans of the issue. There is, you can even still see the newsprint aspect of the page.
Yeah. The good old days.
And I'm seeing the third panel, the little splash of white there on the neck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing the laser tag ad. I'm seeing the Cosmic Boy ad.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
That must have been what I was looking at the first time.
And it's a shame, really, if even going all the way back to the first reprint, that had been color washed away, that they had corrected those aspects of that character to where he was pink, just like Superman would be pink. And it's like, well, but Byrne must have given instructions that it be colored, this hand, this splotches, whatever, depending on what you're looking at. Obviously for a reason, but we corrected those mistakes.
I don't get that. As you can see in the when he rescues Lucy and he's placing her back on the balcony,
Mm-hmm.
his hair it looks disheveled. It looks messed up. It looks like it's been cut by a knife.
Or even maybe windblown.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that Ken hair that Superman typically has, you know.
Yep.
All right. So the scene cut that I mentioned is to the Daily Planet. Lois busts in with a quip. Greetings, wage slaves. What's news? And Clark Kent is like, blah, ha, ha. It would be news if you came in one morning and didn't say that, Lois. So there we get some interaction, some bantering between co-workers here. Ford something city dropped dead is a sign here on a pillar I just noticed. I'm not sure what that's alluding to, but this is the newsroom here. And probably, do you know who some of these other characters are supposed to be?
No, I mean, I know that we eventually meet like Cat Grant and Steve Lombard.
Would this be Cat behind him?
I don't think so. I don't think Kathy.
Okay.
I, at some point, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Could this be the editor over behind his other shoulder? Older balding man with a mustache. Is that supposed to be Perry? Although he doesn't have a mustache. And then the dude sitting here with the cigarette and the tie pulled down. That's not Jimmy, who I would also think would be in the. So these are all just filling out the newsroom, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that could be Cat Grant. And
here's
the bald
Jimmy.
Guy could be Steve Lombard, who does have a mustache, but he's not bald. He's like the sports guy. He's a real testosterone-filled, thinks he's a ladies' man type of guy. So
okay. Yeah, here on the next page we see Jimmy. There can't be any doubt. Well, actually, she drops his name here later on. So
this huge bow tie. That bow tie he is wearing is more like a ribbon that a little girl would wear in her hair. It's big.
He's a fan of the bow tie.
He's not messing around with that bow tie.
I don't think nothing major. We find out that Clark knows about the situation involving Lucy, Lois's younger sister. Jimmy comes in and tells him about some things that are going on there in the city as far as newsworthy things.
Yeah. Scoops.
And as they're listening, Clark doesn't hear, but Superman hears that something is going on in the lobby of their building.
I'm just noticing Jimmy's pants as Clark is running away. Look at those pants.
Oh yeah, the checkerboard corduroys or whatever they're going to be, the checkered polyester with a yellow sweater vest and a blue jacket, dark blue, and a light blue, really big bow tie. And of course, Jimmy has his red hair, and he took off looks like just a baseball cap that he's holding. So
yeah, and I think some people might look at that and go, Jimmy just didn't have a clue. And no, I like to think Jimmy knew exactly what he was doing. He just didn't care. He liked dressing like this. He just didn't care what anybody thought.
I suspect Jimmy was playing a part.
Yeah, maybe.
He knew what people would think of him like this, and he used that. He's being a good news person. You know, he's trying to not necessarily blend in, but be dismissed for a different reason.
Yep.
So Clark makes his excuses and rushes off because he's going to attend to whatever this is that he hears downstairs. And what we see is the back of a dude, I guess. He's got a green jacket on and brown pants and shirts. He's got a red skirt on also over his pants.
No.
And from this scene, yes,
that's
he
what
does.
It looks like, yes.
It's a skirt.
He
has a skirt and pants.
A dress. If we were going to go that route, I consider it a dress. Even.
A dress and pants. So he's and a green jacket and that disheveled hair, which I guess is supposed to put you in mind of this Superman that we've seen running around. If you want to, really pay attention and make that connection. Reading this, I didn't necessarily make that connection because I know that at whatever point, Bizarro is going to show up, he'll show up. I don't necessarily need to look for clues or whatever because it's like he'll be there. He's on the cover. It's, I'm assuming that this dude that was created and collapsed and whatever is, this Superman is acting weird. Yeah, that must be him too. So I'm like, I'm not trying to put together all the little visual clues. I'm like, when they want me to see him, I'll see him. It's,
yeah. Who are they trying to fool? He's on the cover. They're not going to put a Bizarro Superman on the cover of this issue.
And him not be in the book.
Yeah, only to kill him off within 2 panels before he even goes Bizarro.
No,
That'd be even dumber than what they already did.
Little line here between Jimmy and Lois. She decides that, if something's going on, this dude is not going to scoop me like he has for the last 50 years. I'm going to follow him and I'll get the story. So she rushes out into the hall. And of course, Clark is already gone because he Supermaned his ass out of there once he was clear of any visual comparison.
Him changing into his Superman outfit as he's running down the stairs. It is pretty interesting because, first of all, you learn just in this one panel, he's not wearing. They even put it on the first issue. Him opening up his shirt to see the Superman.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't have it on here.
Yeah, he's got the pants on apparently, but the shirt, which makes sense. Who knows if he's out in public and something happens and the front of his shirt rips open? People.
Well, he had his the sleeves of his shirt pushed up, so he couldn't have the long sleeve.
Well, but if
Superman,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it'd be harder to cover the PJs because he likes to push up his sleeves. Apparently,
yep. So he puts the shirt on. His pants are on underneath his suit pants, but then we see him looping the cape around his neck. So where did that come from?
I don't know. The other pocket. The shirt is in one pocket, and he's got a flash ring that he pushes the button and
it can compress it down tight enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Who knows?
Heck, he could just stick it in a Ziploc bag and suck in, and vacuum seal it all together.
There you go. So he runs downstairs, opens the door, and he confronts the dude here. Everybody's cleared out of the lobby. Everybody but the strangely dressed man. And
this is why I think Bizarro knows that Superman is Clark Kent. The fact that he picked up a pair of sunglasses to pop out the lenses,
colored lenses,
so he could wear glasses like Clark does because he put a suit on over his.
So Superman taps him on the shoulder. Okay, fella, maybe you'd like to explain now. In these 2 panels, his hands are chalky white. The back of his neck and his ear here is chalky white. Is that your coloration too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They've finally done it. Yeah.
So here is where in the reprint that you're looking at that something has gone on with this character.
Yeah.
And we have an NBC Saturday morning cartoon ad here with the gummy bears, Kissy Fur, and the Smurfs, Foofer. Says 3rd page and it's 1, 2. Okay. Yeah, I guess this is the 3rd page because that was a 2-page spread of all the cartoons. And this dude turns around and it is an interesting looking dude. This does not look like John Byrne artwork to me. So maybe this is
Bizarro himself.
Yeah, maybe this is Dick Giordano being given the chance to stretch his legs.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
What color are the frames of his glasses?
Blue.
Like a almost the same shade of blue as his hair, right?
Yeah, Superman's outfit, that shade of blue.
Looking at the reprint, because that's what I got looking at my scam, looking at the reprint, and I have these issues up in my attic. It'd be a big chore to go find them, but the reprint, they are a very, very light gray. I mean, very light. It's weird.
Well, gray is related to blue, isn't it? In the color scheme of comics, isn't it an offshoot of blue?
But the second panel, because you got the first panel where he goes, "Great Scott!"
Right.
And then the second panel where Bizarro starts growling, you almost don't even, if you couldn't see the glasses in the first panel, you might not even notice he's wearing glasses in the second panel.
Oh, really?
That's how lightly colored they are.
Wow. Okay. Well, that doesn't make sense because you want the glasses to be able to be seen.
Yeah.
The face of Bizarro strikes me very much as a Frankenstein's monster kind of
Very much
caricature. The hair is unkempt and spiky. The skin is this chalky white. He turns and looks at Superman when Superman taps him on the shoulder. And so now Superman for the first time has come face to face with this thing. I think you better come with me, whoever you are. And then he thinks, before other planet staffers see you, because Superman is afraid that this thing looking like, yeah, okay, this is kind of a stretch to me.
Yeah.
Assuming that someone sees this and assumes it's pretending to be Superman. Okay, the outfit is the same. If they see this thing looking another way, perhaps the way Clark Kent looks, then they will by extension make the assumption that when they see Clark Kent, he is associated with Superman the way this fake Superman is associating with Clark Kent. Yeah, it all seems like just a real big... Okay, if you live in a world that all you have to do so people don't know that you're Superman is change your clothes and put on a pair of glasses, I don't think they're going to be smart enough to make this kind of connection that they're worried about here. I'm sorry. You're saying that, oh, all people are really dumb. And here, well, people are pretty bright because they'll take this association and it's like, yeah.
I agree. It's a stretch just automatically, he mentions the newspaper staffers in general.
Mm-hmm.
But
they see him every day. Okay.
Yeah. When he refers a little bit later, he brings it up again when Lois shows up, and he specifically points out that she's one smart cookie. She sees a guy in a Superman costume that's also trying to wear a suit and a tie at the same time with glasses. And I guess we're supposed to believe that even though, like you said, he's got this whole Frankenstein, chalky, crystalline skin look, I guess we're supposed to believe that he looks enough like Superman that maybe seeing Superman with glasses, that Lois is going to go, there's something really familiar about that.
I feel kind of forced here. Yeah. It's there's not.
I don't believe that anybody would walk into that situation, regardless, Lois, Jimmy, and just automatically go, what? Superman is Clark Kent. But I can see them picking up on something that just kind of nests in the back of their mind, and then maybe 6 months later see something else.
Maybe. But like I say, you're attributing something to people that has been blatantly shown to not be possible otherwise. It's like, so he's going to, scoot this dude somewhere where he can talk to him. And Dude Leo is like, no, because the next thing we see, he has punched Superman clear out of the building, through the door, out into the streets, and into the side of a bus. And he hits the side of the bus and just falls to the street. And that is across two different panels, two different pages. The bottom, 2/3 of the one page is the punch that sends him hurtling. And then the top of the next page is him slamming into the bus that says, Smoke Hackers Cigarette. Hackers is the brand name. So you want to smoke Hackers. Yeah, give me a pack of Hackers.
That's like
that just
Kevin
rolls
Smith's,
off the tongue.
His fake cigarettes in the Kevin Smith universe were called nails, like coffin nails.
Wow. Bahaha. So this, well, I'm just going to call him Bizarro. He is not necessarily said to be that or what, but Bizarro now is approaching him, walking on cars, scrunching up the cars, because presumably the density of the material that he is made of is such that he's going to dent cars. I don't know that Superman walking on cars would necessarily dent them. I guess because he knows that that's possible and mentally corrects his density to prevent that. I don't know.
Like he flies just ever so much.
Right.
Just takes.
So he's laying here. Superman is, kind of wiping the blood off, which I don't think he's bleeding, but that looks like what you would assume. Bystanders are.
you always have to. Oh, I just got clocked in the jaw. I got to rub that spot where I got hit.
I don't
It's
know.
kind of like how everybody has to do this when handcuffs are taken off.
Oh yeah, they gotta rub the circulation back. It's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. If he shook his head, to shake out the bells, that'd be fine. But it's like, yeah, so
maybe he's cowering in terror. Maybe that's what he's doing.
In front of the good townspeople here that are asking if he's okay, which I like. There's a young lady of color here. Yeah. I appreciate that, John. Way to go, dog. Because there hasn't been much color otherwise in the people. Metropolis is a very Caucasian city to be the futuristic city that it is in the late 80s.
Yep.
So Superman sees him approaching. Bizarro tells the people to, take cover, and Superman jumps up and tears his way through something. I guess it's a truck that's sitting here, or because he is in the bus. He was knocked through the outer wall of the bus, and he is in the bus when he's laying there rubbing his jaw, talking to the citizens.
Yeah.
And then rips his way back through the bus, through the hole that he came in, to go back out to fly and engage Bizarro, who is wearing lensless glasses now. In the next page, we see that his eyes turn red, so you know that he's getting ready to zap Superman with some kind of ocular energy, whatever radio wave it's going to be. We don't know. But he hits Superman. Superman, his whole body turns a shade of red, even though you can see the different shades depending on the colors of his outfit. So automatically you assume that he's being hit with heat vision, or at least I did when I read it. It's like, or infravision, whatever you want to call it, which to me, heat vision and infravision would be two different things. But knocks Superman down, knocks him for a loop, and as long as he is beaming at Superman, Superman seems much at the disadvantage. It's hurting him. So Superman picks up a car there by where he fell once he was hit with the beams, and flings it towards Bizarro to break up this weird ocular connection that they have going on. Immediately follows up flipping of the car physically to get within distance of Bizarro to engage in some fisticuffs. And he finds out those fisticuffs aren't doing much. It's very much like fighting himself. His physical ability and Bizarro's physical ability are the same. So they're punching each other, but they seemingly aren't doing anything substantial. Superman decides, okay, well, I'll try my heat vision and see if it potentially knocks him for a loop, like his knocked me for a loop. And he juices him and, in essence, just burns all the non-Superman outfit off of him, all the regular clothes that he had that we don't know really where. Well, we do know where he got, because Jimmy said somebody broke into a place, and yeah, so that was Bizarro getting his disguise.
It also darkens his costume.
Yes, it is a darker shade.
It burns half of Bizarro's cape away.
Yeah, okay.
Or maybe a quarter of it. The bottom of the cape.
Some of it there at the bottom, right?
And maybe it's just me, but his hair appears shorter and more disheveled now. And we know that Superman's heat vision can burn hair because he uses it to shave.
Last issue, yeah.
Could be. That's also a result of getting that blast of heat vision.
His head looks a little bushier there in this panel where Lois shows up. Of course, Lois is going to show up. Superman's either got to protect her, or she's going to end up fridged. It's one of the two is how she's going to be written. That's the only possibilities. Well, she survives, so she doesn't get fridged. For those of you that might be worried, Superman does save her, because Bizarro immediately focuses his attention on her, not on Superman. Grabs her and flies off with her. I don't think Superman, what's happening? Who is this man? There's nothing to indicate that, he just sees her and whatever, flies off with her to ultimately, we don't really know, and nothing really has been shown here. I mean, he was engaged with Superman one-on-one 100%. They were going at it back and forth. He sees Lois, and all of a sudden his attention now is on Lois, and it's just him and Lois. So
yeah,
it's
like instinctual for him almost to grab her up.
Something, yeah. Well,
like he doesn't even, the creature itself doesn't even know why he did it. He just
probably. I mean, he can't be taking her to safety because he is the problem. So he flies off. Superman flies off after them, which this is a very good image in my mind of a flying Superman. I like this angle. I like Superman holding his arms out like this. That's I like that image of him flying. Yeah, he's thinking to himself, of course. They're flying. Bizarro and Lois are flying somewhere. She's talking to him, trying to get something out of him. He doesn't say anything, but in the midst of flying, he facial rapes her with a lip lock here. Kisses her, and this is where she says, "I don't believe it. 5 years I've been dreaming of being kissed by Superman. Now this thing," as he has released the lip lock and continued the flying. Momentarily there, he was hovering with her to kiss her. He can't do too many things at one time. So,
and looking at those three panels, a lot of what I'm thinking of is for a span of time that I spent as a freelance color flatter for digital color artists, and his hair, the flatting, ultimately you're just applying solid color inside the shapes. And so you would, Lois's outfit, flat that orange color on there. And then the digital colorist might come in and add shading and
right. Or a tone change or whatever.
Yeah. And, but when hair was drawn in that fashion, where it's not just one continuous outline as the outline of the hair, it's just these hairs, these lines of hair that's just sticking up. It's, you have to then kind of draw a shape around that hair as best you can to stick a flat color in there. And that's what it ends up looking like. It just doesn't look great sometimes.
Like a halo of color rather than a precise defined.
Yeah. And in my digital version, I don't see it on my scan version, but this first panel of him holding Lois flying, there's a strip of blue. It's like his hair ends at his forehead. There's a strip of white, and then there's another strip of blue because he's got these bangs that are hanging down.
Yep.
And so it's like they messed up there they just added a strip of blue that is
unless it is bangs, because I see skin tone on either side. Like there was a lock of bang hanging down.
Yeah, but there's white between that lock of bang and the rest of the hair.
Right?
In the corrected version, it's like they just took a paintbrush and went a whole strip of blue there. So it just went across the white that's supposed to be there on the forehead.
And you've just got bang hanging down below that.
Yeah, but it's weird because here's his bangs. Here's one side of his head. Here's the other side of his head. Hair, white, blue strip, only on one side of the lock of bangs. It's really bad. It's like they're trying to do a big blue unibrow or something.
Which chalky, pale chalky skin. Now I say chalky as in the color white chalky. Right. Now, of course, the blind sister described him as feeling dusty, which also could be an application of chalky as well. But I'm referring to the color.
I think chalk is a good descriptive word because of the color and the dust. I mean, I have to imagine that's what it.
Probably, yeah. And he's got yellow eyes, and it makes him look something artificial or sick, or yellow eye whites is always a bad thing when you see it on somebody. That means it's a negative.
It was that's
Or
connotated a super demon in Supernatural, because normally their eyes were black. If they
okay.
had one guy with yellow eyes, he'd kick your ass.
Could be that they're also a regular human, but they're an alcoholic. I think it's yellow is portrayed that way a lot too.
Jaundice of the eyes.
So Superman knows where to go, and apparently he's taking Lois to where Lucy is, and presumably Lucy has found her way back to Lois's apartment, because we don't exactly know where he dropped Lucy off when he saved her.
I think he dropped her off in the apartment.
We presume that, but we don't know. There's no indication.
I think he was flying by and he saw her jump.
I guess, we've made so many other assumptions, so I guess we'll just assume that is, yeah.
That's about all you can do with some of these things here.
So now he, I'm sure this is a pertinent little triumvirate meeting here. He delivers Lois and Lucy. This is why. Lucy's vision apparently is starting to come back a little bit, because she can see Lois's shape, and she recognizes and acknowledges it's Lois by her shape, which 6 hours ago she wouldn't have been able to do. She wouldn't have known it was Lois until Lois spoke. But here, as soon as she saw her, she could tell, which again, now that means that she very recently became blind, because she has not forgotten what Lois looks like.
Yep.
So yeah, little bit more assumption there. Lucy mentions that Superman just rescued me. He was just here. So this is all Bizarro rescuing Lucy, being breaking into the place where he got his clothes, going to the Daily Planet's lobby, confronting Superman, having a battle out in front of Superman, out in front of the Daily Planet with Superman, grabbing Lois and getting away, all occurred in a time frame to where Lucy feels, when she is describing what happened to her, that Superman just left. And we know that the Superman she's referring to is Bizarro. So his just leaving managed to do all of these things, and here he is showing up again right after. So yeah. I don't know, some kind of time displacement thing, TARDIS kind of time manipulation thing going there. I don't know. You can hear the emergency brake in the background not being released and screaming. And that's for you Doctor Who fans out there. I know why the TARDIS makes that noise. So, this isn't a Doctor Who podcast. So we find out that Lucy's vision is better. Coming back might be a stretch, but she's able to discern shapes, and does she say colors? The shadows, which is kind of a color. Black and white is a those are colors. Well, yeah, more or less. One is all the colors and one is no color, but still. So her vision is better after having been rescued by Superman. No connection, just coincidence. Although he did feel kind of dusty when he rescued her. So Superman, the real Superman, shows up. So now it's Superman, Lois, Lucy, and Bizarro all together here on the balcony of Lois's apartment. Nobody's noticing this. There's not Matilda taking pictures of whatever her neighbors are doing or anything like that. So there's no connection being made with any of these people. For some reason, let's see, Superman does make the verbal reference that there is only one Superman. And he says, I've got to corral this caricature. Boy, that's a mouthful. I've got to corral this caricature of me before any more damage is. And so he's going to capture Bizarro. Bizarro doesn't like it and punches him into Lois's apartment. He can't punch him out so there's no damage. Yeah. He's got to punch him into the apartment and screams. And if you had questions before, we definitely in this panel of Bizarro screaming see the true monstrous animalistic side of this thing. He doesn't look really human. He's screaming. He's got this chalky white hair. He's got this horrid bowl cut, or chalky white skin, horrid bowl cut hair, yellow eyes, and he's screaming, R-R-A-H-H-R, rar, kind of like Frankenstein's monster would.
Yeah, for sure.
Fisticuffs, punchy, or let's see. Now, no, I guess it makes sense. Bizarro punches Superman back out the, not the hole they came in, but he makes a different hole.
Yeah. At some point, Superman's going to be like, "Good God, how many walls is this?"
No doubt. The building's going to collapse because of all the support that is being knocked out of this one. But back out, they're flying in a pretty standard flying man fight panel. The one grabs the other and hoists him above his head, like it would look like if he was standing on the ground, but hoist him above his head and throws him down into the ground. The throwing is Bizarro. The baseball. The thrower is
the throwee.
The thrower is Bizarro, and the throwee is Superman into the street down below.
It's a good page. It's there's no dialogue, there are no words, there's no text at all on that page. It's 4 panels,
just all actiony. Yep.
Boom, 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 boom. Basically.
And the kind of actiony that you want to see with Superman. He so often Superman has to hold back for one reason or another. Well, he's not holding back. He is attempting to give as good as he's getting here. It just turns out that it's not doing anything to the bad guy. The bad guy's not suffering for it, seemingly. So Superman's laying here on the ground, and he's trying to figure out, crud, what do I do? I've done this, and we seem evenly matched. But then he knows that the dust that comes off the creature every time he moves, perhaps if I examine it with my microscopic vision, and then we see a close-up of cells floating in some kind of whatever matrix here. Hell, and not the movie kind of matrix being everything else but what you're looking at. It's kind of a scientific word for those of you that, it's not movie. Anyways, it's not a Doctor Who no, I'm kidding. He zooms in on it, and he notices something about the cells. He says it's not organic. It's mimicking living cells, which point of order. Organic and living are 2 different things. They don't have to be
okay.
So or you can have organic cells that are not alive at the time that you're looking at them. Organic has to do with what they're made of. Living, of course, we understand. And it's not alive, and that means, so now Superman realizes he doesn't have to hold back, because the creature, which again this is a philosophical kind of question here. The creature is not alive. Well, what does alive mean? Because the Vision of the Avengers is not alive. But, et cetera, et cetera.
It'd make Wanda pretty upset when they killed him.
So Superman feels that because this creature is not alive, it is something artificial. And as something artificial, of course, I can just reduce it to rubble if I want to. I don't have to hold back. So I would think there's any number of characters in the DC universe that would kind of have an issue with that, as far as being not alive and then being treated like a piece of quartz or a piece of coal, or it's like the Red Tornado comes to mind now that I think about it. So Superman, they go back at it, and Superman is rushing to re-engage, okay, because he's however many floors, by the way it's drawn, down, picking himself up out of the ground, shoots up to re-engage Bizarro. Bizarro sees him shooting up, so Bizarro decides that he is going to shoot down, and so the two are coming at each other like opposing missiles in opposite directions to collide. And they do collide. And then you get White Christmas is the movie. It's a dust of Bizarro, which is kind of gross if you think about it, but especially Lois standing here with her mouth wide open. So it rains Bizarro after the impact. So in the first couple panels of the page, we assume Superman must have won. Bizarro is kaput. The reigning Bizarro-ness fully restores Lucy's sight, which was hinted that there was some connection previously, that after encountering Bizarro, she was able to see shadows and shapes. Now her vision is fully restored in that she has been doused in Bizarro flakes. Superman comes down, realizes, oh, well, Lucy's got her sight back. So he's like, I overheard what Lucy said earlier about her vision being partially restored after contact with that creature. I think that must have been caused by exposure to some of the dust from its body. Somehow it counteracted the chemicals that originally caused her blindness. Shattering the thing's unliving body created enough of the dust to cure her. Okay. Thank you, smartest man in the room. So the story ends. So, Billy D into house. We just finished talking about the book, though, Billy, man. You missed like
Billy,
all of our best talk, because now Steven is going to explain how much he liked the book, and I'm going to tell him how much the book sucked. So that's where we're at. No, it didn't suck.
It's not one of my favorites. This is one of those miniseries that it makes me so sad, because I think it starts off fairly strong.
Oh yeah.
And then it just again, I like to think that it's John Byrne just trying to get all this out of the way so he can tell the story he wants to tell. And that's whatever.
It does feel forced.
Unfortunately,
almost like he had this tick list. I have to talk about this. I have to show them. I have to explain this. And
he may have been given like a list from DC editorial that's like, this, you have to show these things.
You have to cover these in the new environment that you want to create. Go ahead, but you have to be sure that you touch on these. And it's like, well, okay. I can understand that. If I were a devout Superman fan, I probably would be digging the hell out of this, because of all the little, not Easter eggs, but of all the little touch points that are important to know moving forward, to see if they have changed or what has been changed about them, or what have you. As well, this is a new world that Superman's world is new. It's not even necessarily a reboot. It's a reimagining, it's so much of it is still exactly what I have grown to expect from Superman for the last mid-'80s to 40 some years, almost 50 years, maybe. Yeah, going on 50 years. So, my question as a Superman fan is, well, John Byrne, DC, damn you, what have you changed? And so, mainly Byrne is trying to say, well, this is the same, and this is still here, and this is, because any big changes, I'm sure, they're holding off until they have a longer run, fuller fleshed out story, so that they can explain, this has changed, and here's why. Here's how it's changed. Here's what that change means. Here, like we would want if you're going to change our superhero universe. But Byrne has to show that these things are still what they are. Luthor is still a big, brilliant badass. His armor still exists. We know that. Lois is still here. Lucy is not blind, which I don't know if at this point Lucy was supposed to be blind. I'm not sure. What else? Mon Pa Kent are there. He still started in Smallville. He's still a reporter at the Daily Planet. Lois is still a reporter. Jimmy is still there. These definite touchstone-y things. Now, looking about the next issue, the 6th and final of the miniseries, Next issue, Return to Smallville. So I guess we're going to go back to Smallville and focus on, I would imagine, something coming out about Superman being alien, because for the first time it was mentioned in this book, which that also is a major part of Superman's character, is that he's not human, he's not of Earth, he's not, but yet, of course, being the superhero, all of these things he does choose to be. So that dichotomy.
And the big change that they made, so that it's the gestation matrix that's sent instead
he was
of
born
baby.
on Earth.
He was born on Earth. So it's like,
right.
They do touch on it. That's
kind of a
big
stretch,
theme.
but okay.
It is a big theme of the next issue.
I could argue that no, actually he wasn't born on Earth. He was born on this little piece of Krypton. Just like they argue that where this house is in the U.S. is Russian soil because it's the embassy.
Yep.
You're not. Yeah. So, okay. If that, offends the big Superman fans out there, so be it. This does not mean he was born on Earth. He was still born on Krypton. It was just a little teeny piece of Krypton. Yeah. So,
I have a real love-hate relationship with the Man of Steel. I can't tell you how I feel about everything that came after, because this has got to be the 6th, 7th, maybe 8th time I've read the Man of Steel, whereas everything that's come out after, the first few issues, I think I read a year or two ago, but most of it's going to be stuff that I haven't read, since 87.
Okay.
86, well, 87. But I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the Man of Steel miniseries. This I think I've said a number of times that this was my first comic book Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, though, I believe Legends came out before this. Superman was in Legends, and I'm pretty sure I read Legends. My brother was getting that, and he let me read it when those. So
was it before, or was it coming out at the same time? But it just didn't start. It started out a little before, but there were issues of both on the stands at the same time, weren't there?
Maybe. Let me look real quick. So
I'll look. Go ahead and.
All right. But regardless, the things that I love about this series, I think a lot of it tie into all the stuff about Superman I was introduced to when I was however old I was in 86. And so that nostalgic anchor is what makes it difficult for me to see too much bad in this series. Whereas the present day me who's used to a different type of storytelling, there's just certain things about this series that I'm not a big fan of. And we'll talk about it a lot more in the next episode, because that issue will, of course, wrap up this series. And
The Man of Steel came out June through September. Legends started in August.
Oh, okay.
So 1, 2, maybe 3 issues of both would have been on the stands at the same time.
Okay, cool. So this probably was my very first introduction then to Superman, was Man of Steel. Yeah, cool.
So I can understand what DC was wanting to do. I would have to question if it was necessary to do. Definitely if it was necessary to do in this way. So I
feel like it was a big hit back then. It was really popular back then.
Okay, it really smacks to me of what us kids nowadays would call a money grab. Yeah. Because anything that is being done could easily been done in an eponymously named series or in action, or it's new. So we'll drop these little tidbits of what is new and what has not changed. That would be simple to do, rather than distinctly having to pull it out and say, here is a series just for Superman.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why? Except that, now, I will say, it is awesome to see these pretty drawings of John Byrne doing Superman. Absolutely. Action scenes with other characters from Metropolis. Yes, it is very much eye-pleasing. Absolutely. Well, if you're a John Byrne fan,
Yeah.
which I am.
Some people
So,
do not like him at all, but
that's fine. They have no taste. But yeah, it's so at the very least, I want to see John Byrne draw Super. Well, you will in his book, but here's kind of a teaser of what it's going to look like with this series, and you can. So it's like, okay,
yeah, it's what was I going to say? Oh, my prediction at this point is that when we talk about issue number 6 in the next episode, I have my prediction is that you're going to be like, why did you make me read these?
No, I won't be like that.
And then my hope, since I don't remember them, but through the lens of a 14-year-old, I only hope that once we get into the 3 titles, Superman, Action Comics, both of those are John Byrne, and then Adventures of Superman, which is like Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway. I hope that we'll see some a lot better stuff. I think we will.
I would hope we see some better stuff. Yeah, because the same restrictions hopefully won't be on those books as apparently was imposed on this one.
I feel like I'm looking at my face here on this StreamYard thing, and I feel like I may have accidentally hit something that added some kind of weird filter.
No, I don't think so, because mine, where my headphones are interacting with the background, it's like some kind of radiation-y kind of stuff.
Just looking at this part, and it just looks almost too smooth and manufactured.
I don't think so.
Almost cartoony, like I'm wearing makeup.
You just look really pale, white boy.
I usually do with my rosy cheeks.
Turn some light on my side.
To wrap this up, I visited. Well, there's a couple things I want to do. I visited Mike's Amazing World of Comics and DCFandom.com and gathered up the notes and the trivia they had about this issue. I thought I'd review that with you real quick.
Okay.
So Mike's Amazing World points out that though the artificial duplicate of Superman resembles the pre-crisis Bizarro, he is never referred to by that name in this story.
True.
And he also says Lois, we talked about this already. Lois claims to have been wanting to kiss Superman for 5 years in the story. However, based on the timeline established in this series, Superman's first public appearance could only have happened 3 years earlier. Therefore, Lois must be exaggerating.
That's getting a little fanboy nitpicky for me.
I don't.
Oof,
if that's the thing, I don't know. Maybe it's a future issue that will get more of a good idea of the timeline. So I don't know if he's pointing out something that's going to happen later on that will firmly establish the actual timeline, or if he's talking about something that DC has published in like one of those encyclopedias or something, and
it says that, yeah, I don't know. I just, stuff like that is always really amusing to me, because I'm like, whoever determined that had a lot of free time. Yeah. That's time frames. And I will say, I think probably Peter Rios is pretty good at doing stuff like this. And I'm like, dude, I envy that you have the brain space to devote to trying to figure stuff like that out. I just, no. Not me. And that's not a slam, Peter, if you listen to this, man. I love you and appreciate you like you wouldn't know.
Yeah. He's the PF Podfather?
One of very few. Yep.
All right. So this is from DCFandom.com. I'm not going to read through all of them because some of them are just like, this issue was reprinted in blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But it does point out that this is the only appearance of the first post-crisis Bizarro, meaning we know there will be other post-crisis Bizarros.
Oh, okay. So it won't be this one. Okay. Well, so that definitely means that he was destroyed. He does not come back. Okay.
It points out that Lex Luthor appeared last in, of course, the previous issue, Man of Steel number 4. But his next chronological appearance will take place in Swamp Thing number 52.
Okay. I'd have to look and see. That's during the, who is it? Alan Moore? Is that who the big name on Swamp Thing was? Or Grant Morrison? No, it was Alan Moore.
This is Alan Moore, yeah.
Yeah, from issue, 20 or 21. So that's probably, although that might be kind of late. I don't know if he was still doing it. Billy, if you're there, did Alan Moore do Swamp Thing 56?
According to DCFandom.com, this issue is Swamp Thing number 52 is written by Alan Moore.
Okay, so it's still doing his
Rick
run.
Beach.
Okay. Yeah, so I wonder when that appears, like, as far as time. You've read issue 6. Does Lex appear in issue 6 of this?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So we won't see him again until on into one of Superman's titles. So
yeah,
okay.
I think maybe issue 1 of Superman.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he comes back soon, but yeah, makes me wonder where Swamp Thing fits into this timeline. Yeah. Obviously in between, but I mean,
it could be let me go to that page real quick, because it could be if no, it does not appear to be a Legends tie-in.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's true. That could have been a yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Okay.
All right, this is the first appearance of the post-crisis Lucy Lane. Okay. The details surrounding her blindness are expanded upon in World of Metropolis number 3, which I don't think has been published yet at this point. According to, it's got a cover date of October 88, so it's going to be
a couple years.
A year, yeah, at least
because this is June, July, August of 86.
Yeah. This marks the first moment in post-crisis continuity when someone learns that Superman is an alien. Prior to this, the Kents and Clark had assumed that he was a mutated human from a foreign space program.
Because of the spaceship and okay.
The storyline from this issue is loosely based on the origin of the pre-crisis Bizarro Superboy, as first published in Superboy number 68. Yeah, in the original story, the object of Bizarro's affections was a girl named Melissa, not Lucy Lane. Bizarro's, technically, his first appearance was a Bizarro Superboy.
Okay.
The Bizarro we know pre-crisis, I think, actually first appeared in the newspaper strip. There was a scientist who'd created a gun. You shoot people with it, they would create a Bizarro version of them.
Okay.
Let's see. All the other covers for the Man of Steel limited series spotlights a feature character walking towards the reader's point of view. The cover of this issue, however, shows Bizarro walking away from the reader. The gimmick is keeping in line with the pre-crisis stereotype of Bizarro as a mixed-up, backwards creature.
Okay.
And then the last bit of trivia, Luthor and Dr. Chang, their creation is never referred to as Bizarro in the issue. However, Who's Who Update 87, issue number 1, provides an entry for the monster under the name Bizarro.
So there is how we know once and for all that he is a Bizarro, because he's not referred to it in the story.
Yep. All right, there's one
Who's
last...
Who. What a marvelous book.
One last thing I want to do here real quick. I was looking at the scans.
Ah, yes.
And I have to point this out because
okay,
I love looking at these pages from these old books in reference to the subscriptions.
Okay.
$9
for a year.
12 issue subscription.
Yep.
$9.
I think in a lot of ways, the 80s was the golden age of DC Comics. I was thinking about this earlier today. The 80s for DC, and I don't know for me if it is the 80s for Marvel or if I would have to go back into the 70s for Marvel. It might be an overlap between the two decades as the true golden age in my mind for Marvel. And the golden age for me is like creativity and characters and longevity of characters and storylines and the mark that creators made and things like that, you know. And I look at books nowadays and I think, 30 years from now, people aren't going to be referencing this shit. I don't think. I just don't think. But here we are, 40 years later, talking about these books from DC.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think about this: $9 for one full year of a comic book. There was a time back, the last time I was really legitimately collecting comics, I'd either go to the store, I'd have them sent to me monthly, and I feel like my habit, my Huntley habit, was about $50 a month, which
Okay.
is isn't as isn't small, but it's not as big as others that I know that I've seen. Right.
Right.
So $50 a month, $12 or 12 months. That's $600 a year. I could have gotten 66.6666 issues or subscriptions. I could have gotten 66 times 12 titles in a year if you could subscribe to books for $9 for 12 issues.
I think that would be 6.6, wouldn't it? 6 nines are 54, right? If 6 nines are 54 and you're spending $50.
Well,
You mean
I went
issues?
$600 for the year. So if it's
Right.
$9 for the year for 12 issues.
Oh,
So
and
if I
divide
took
it
that
up. Okay.
$600, I divided that by 9, it's 66 point, a great big bunch of sixes and a 7.
Yeah. Okay. And then times 12 is as far as how many books you could have bought.
Yeah. So let's see. 66 times 12. 792 books.
That's how many books you could have gotten then for that amount of investment. Almost 800 books.
Yep.
800 different issues. Not counting, of course, giant size or annuals or stuff like that, because they'd have been a little more. But just
So they had,
regular books.
Action Comics, Tales of the Legion, Superman, Batman, Detective, Justice League, Green Lantern Corps, Star Trek, Secret Origins, Blue Beetle, Warlord, All-Star Squadron, Hawkman, Adventures of the Outsiders, GI Combat, Sergeant Rock, Tales of the Teen Titans, Swamp Thing, Firestar, Booster Gold, and Adventures of Superman.
Good stuff.
I read a few of those back then.
I read a few of them recently, not back then.
All right. Do you have a special favorite moment or anything like that from this issue? Nothing.
Probably the coolest panel would have been that splash page to open the book.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a cool image of Superman himself, and then the armor, but Superman himself, and then there was that image of him flying in that kind of V shape there in the smaller panel later on in the story. Those two, because in my mind, of course, it's a Superman book, so the favorite, the best should be something that incorporates Superman. That's what you're there for.
Yeah,
and. Yeah, so those would be the two favorite, I guess, images? Yeah.
I would choose
Superman's
first encounter with Bizarro.
Okay.
Punching him through the wall of the building, across the street, and into that bus.
Okay.
I like that. And then I guess if I had a second, I would choose Lois Lane's orange jumpsuit. It's one of the best moments of the book.
You like the jumpsuit. Yeah.
I love it, man. It makes her short hair and that jumpsuit. I can see her in an 80s music video as a pop.
80s. That looks very 70s to me. Orange jumpsuit. That smacks disco.
Yes. I think, though, when you combine it with the short hair.
Okay.
Yeah. If she had long feathered hair, totally 70s. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Any last thoughts? Let's see.
I look forward in both positive and negative ways to read issue 6.
Speaking of which, in our next episode, Superman returns to Smallville and confronts the ghost of his and confronts the ghosts of his past, both Kryptonian and human. A mysterious midnight encounter with a spectral Jor-El triggers a flood of revelations about his true heritage, while an unexpected reunion with Lana Lang forces him to face the bittersweet truth about where he belongs. How will the Man of Steel reconcile his newfound alien legacy with the humanity he cherishes? Well, Ed and I are going to get into that in the next episode of the Superman Super Show. That'll be for Man of Steel number 6, The Haunting. That will wrap up the current season of the Superman Super Show. And then the next season will begin 2 weeks later. No, we're not pausing in between seasons. I'm just saying, in case you care about that stuff. And so in the next season, we will start out with 6 Golden Age episodes and then go back and do 6 post-crisis episodes, back and forth.
And note the legacy numbering for this episode.
Yes, it's 83 overall, but episode 5. If this was
don't focus on the 5. Focus on the 83 legacy
83,
numbering.
That's right.
Where do I start? Episode number 1. That's where you start. It's 83, 1.
That's right. And you can't start the first episode where we talk about Man of Steel number 1 until you've read every Superman comic up to that point. Just be aware of that.
So there you go. So get to reading, cowboy. You know.
So be waiting for you 30 years in the future.
It'll be here. It's digital. It'll last forever.
Hopefully it'll still be out there. All right. Well, that's all I got. That's all you got.
That's all I got.
All right. Until next time, folks, I'm Steven and that's Ed. And this was the Superman Super Show. Bye.
Ciao. Wow.
My recording is 2 hours and 27 minutes.
Yeah, mine is, let's see. Mine is 2 hours. Yeah, about that. Stop. Export.
Yeah. There was even a point there where I was like, we got to not cut back on the banter so we don't make these so long. But now I'm just like, I don't care. People are just going to get longer episodes in the post-crisis.
Yeah, that's fine. Also thinking about the next set, the next season after this Golden Age. Would it make sense to, you said 3 books. Would it make sense, even though I know it'll take longer, but whatever, who cares? To talk 6 issues of one title in a season, 6 issues of another title in a season, 6 issues of the third title in a season?
I think it would make sense initially because I don't think any of the stories necessarily tie into each other. If we're still doing this when they get to the Triangle era.
Well, but I mean, if you do that, then potentially you're going to be cutting off storylines anyways by having 6 episode seasons.
That's true.
Right. I mean, so it's like, well, whatever continuity you're trying to maintain, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, it would just make more sense. This season is episodes X through Y of Adventures of Superman. This season is X through Y of Superman. You know, it seems like it would be easier to find. And then it will be easier in a way for us to make reference later. It's like, and you know, for the first part of this story, you can go back to season X and listen to episode Z, and that will be the first part of this season or of this story that we're reading, or you know, something like that. But I mean, as far as keeping things straight, there's no way to do it talking about multiple books. It just, anything you do, I think
my only suggestion in regard to the order in which we do them following Man of Steel was just based on how they are listed, you know, how they show up in the big trade that I'm reading.
Well, yeah, that would be one way to do it. Yeah. It already, makes my brain itch that we stopped the last season of the Golden Age show not having finished an issue of Superman.
Yeah, because
There's one story left, and I'm like, ugh! Yeah, but whatever. 6 episodes, it doesn't matter.
pull up our schedule.
Because we have the last story of episode 10, and then whatever comes after that. I think there's you've said that there's a World Finest, there's an issue of Action, there's maybe something else, and then the first story of Superman 11 or something like that, and then that'll be the end of that season. So
I'm gonna try to share my screen with you.
Oh, I'm still sitting here playing with Audacity. Yeah, I can't see that. That's too small.
Too small? All right.
Yeah, but
no, don't worry about it then. So let me get rid of it then. Okay, so the episode that I'm editing right now that'll go up on Monday for the Patreon, and then for everybody else next Monday, is episode number 78. And that's actually Superman number 10, part 2. And that's
okay.
That's the mid-season.
Oh, is it? Okay, I thought we only had like 70. I thought we only went to Superman 10 episode story 3. I thought that was the last.
Yeah, we have recorded up to episode 3 or up to part 3, but that will be the first episode in season 8.
Oh, so, will it? Oh, okay, okay.
Each season will be 12 episodes. So the first 6 episodes of season 7 were those 6 Golden Age stories leading up to Superman number 10, part 2.
Right.
And then the back half of the season, which will start with episode 79, will be Man of Steel 1 through 6.
So you'll start dropping Man of Steel, and you're calling that a season, but the Golden Age before it is not a finished season. It's only a half season.
Well, they both, I mean, they're
right.
It's basically each season is divided in half.
Oh, okay.
The first half of the season will be 6 Golden Age episodes. Then the second half of the season will be 6.
My bad.
Episodes.
I got you.
So all right. So Monday, March 24th is when episode 78 goes out for everybody. And that'll be episode 78, Superman number 10, part 2, the Talon Agency fraud.
Right. Okay.
2 weeks after that, so starting April 7th, will be the 7th episode of season 7, and it's Man of Steel number 1.
Okay.
It'll be episode 79. So season 7 will end with episode 84, Man of Steel number 6. And then episode 8 will begin. Oh, I got to update those dates. I got those all wrong. Episode 8 will begin with season 8 will begin with episode 85, which is part 3 of Superman number 10. And then the 6th Golden Age story that we talk about in season 8 will be Superman 11, part 1.
Okay, so basically for the Golden Age, we're following, which not basically, I mean, I know this, but I'm just wanting to say it. We're following the stories as they appear in those Golden Age omnibuses for Superman, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we have finished Man of Steel. What is going to be the next 6 post-crisis books that we talk about?
Well, the first one to be released after Man of Steel was Superman number 1. So we can do those first 6 issues of Superman.
Of Superman? Okay.
Yeah.
And that is the 1986 volume, I think. Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, if we follow
6,
the book, or at least this newest collection anyway.
What would be the book? A post-crisis book? Or I mean, we haven't gotten to the death or any of those yet, right?
No. I'm reading from a collection that's just called, let's see, hold on. Let me go to the actual store page. Stupid thing. Anyway, it's called Superman, the Man of Steel, Volume 1. And there are, how many volumes are there? It collects basically the John Byrne era. And so there's volume 1, 2, 3, 4.
So it does not have the third book that was not John Byrne in it.
It does. Even though even though that book didn't start off with any John Byrne involvement, it's included in the John Byrne era because at some point during that era, Marv Wolfman and Jerry Ordway, or I don't know if they both leave. Basically, Byrne starts writing that book as well. He doesn't draw it, but he starts writing it.
Well, I mean, if you want to follow that trade paperback because the stories are in there, we can follow that, whatever their mapping is.
There's also it'd be nice if I could figure out how to. Yeah, let me try this. Okay, see in Kindle Store. Okay, so the final volume of this set that I'm reading from Superman, the Man of Steel, Volume 4, that came out in March of 2022. Okay. But there was a previous set of trades. They were smaller collections, so they obviously didn't hold as many issues.
Right.
And there were, looks like 9 of those.
Do they cover more, or do they cover essentially the same number of books that the 4-volume, I guess those are what, omnibuses?
Let's look.
But again, I mean, I guess the bottom line is, I was talking about just doing consecutive issues of one book. I mean, if you have a mapping that makes sense to you that bounces around, that's fine. Just as long as I know what mapping is. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, my original, I'm open. I'm always open to change. My original plan, though, the way I have it put in the schedule, but again, I got to update those dates. I can't believe how some of those dates are messed up. But yeah, the way I think I have it listed in the schedule is either how they appear in the trade that I'm reading, the order in which they appear in the trading I'm reading, or I may have just, it's highly probable that I just went to Mike's Amazing World of Comics and because I feel like, let me just check there real quick. Okay, so
I guess Billy D must have bounced out. He never answered my Swamp Thing question.
Okay, so it's October of 86 that these new Superman books come in. And the first one that's published is Superman.
Billy, I was asking if Alan Moore was still writing Swamp Thing at 52. Issue 52, not like DC 52. But at issue 52. And I believe Steven looked it up really quick and answered it. That might have been why you never said anything.
So, okay, the way I have this, I have the schedule is listed, the order of books is listed in the schedule based on what Mike's Amazing World of Comics is listing as their date of publication. Because in the trade that I'm reading, it goes... following Man of Steel, it goes Superman #1, then Action Comics number 584, which is the first John Byrne one, and then The Adventures of Superman.
Took over after. I was talking to Billy. Then Adventures of Superman. Go ahead.
Then Adventures of Superman 424. So
okay, what are you looking at Mike's to see that list?
I just
what did you
went to
query?
I just went to the newsstand.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at all the DC comics that were on sale in October of
Right.
1986.
So
Sort of
you're
at the
looking at
newsstand.
a publishing chronology of
Yeah.
those 3 books, basically, as to when.
Yeah, and it still shows Superman #1 being first
Mm-hmm.
on October 9th, but it lists the Adventures of Superman being published next on October 16th, then Action Comics third on October 23rd. So that's the
Okay.
order in which I've placed them in the schedule.
Okay, so even though that might not be the order that they show up in this Man of Steel Volume 1 collection that you're looking at, you don't care necessarily to read them out of order in that book if that's the way that Mike has them listed, because that's what you're referring to.
Correct. Yeah.
So in a 6 episode half season, we will talk about basically the Superman books at this time for 2 months.
Yeah.
Because there's 3 books, so we would cover 2 months of real time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
and this is you're looking at what, October of 86?
October of 86.
Okay. Okay.
So it would be like Superman, then Adventures of Superman, then Action Comics, and then Superman, Adventures of Superman, Action Comics. And that would be the end of that season.
Right. Okay.
So
alrighty then. And yeah, the golden age, we already are going by the mapping that's in the omnibuses that we're looking at. So
yep.
However they appear there. Alrighty.
All right then. Rick Veitch, Billy D says, when I looked at that issue of Swamp Thing on DC Fandom, it did show Alan Moore as the writer, and then I did see Rick Veitch's name down there. Is he a writer or an artist?
He is. I thought he was the artist, but I think he takes over, maybe doing both for a period of time.
There's volume 2 of Swamp Thing. Yeah, writer Alan Moore, penciler Rick Veitch.
Yeah,
issue 52.
And then, like Billy said, by about 60, Alan Moore's gone, and his thought here was that Rick Veitch takes over both by 60. Maybe earlier, but
I'm gonna find out.
Because we're up to issue 52 in what we were talking about, so issue 60 isn't too far out from that.
Well, issue 59 has 1, 2, 3, 4 writers listed. One of those is Alan Moore. Steve Bissett, Alan Moore, John Totleben, and Rick Veitch.
Yep.
Issue 60, still written by Alan Moore.
Oh, he's still involved in 60. Okay.
Alan Moore.
Billy, don't worry about the Moore zealots. I have him chasing me all the time.
Issue 61 shows Alan Moore and Steve Bissett as the writers.
Mm-hmm.
And then issue 62, Rick Veitch as writer and penciler.
Okay. Yeah, all of those guys. Moore, Veitch, Bissett, Totleben. Those are all killer horror creators, man.
Yeah. Alan Moore is back as the writer on issue 63.
Yeah. But he's not much longer.
I'm reading I've been slowly reading all these Hulk trades that I have that are specifically, because the ones that I started with were the Peter David Visionary Hulk series. And, there are areas of that whole run that I love and remember. And, I always remembered enjoying the Todd McFarlane, but I dropped in and out while that series was going on, but I remember picking it up when Dale Keown got on the book.
Yeah, boy.
And I started picking it up again when they created the one Hulk, basically, when Bruce and all his personalities were all in one body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm reading these issues. I finally gotten to that point in these trades. So Dale Keown comes onto the book. The Hulk is still the gray Hulk at that point, and he does like 2 issues. And then a guest artist comes in, and then Dale Keown comes back for an issue, and then another guest artist. And it's like, I want to read these Dale Keown issues. I don't stick in these guest artists that come in so he can stay caught up. And
yeah, I was gonna say Dale couldn't keep up a set schedule. Well, a set schedule. Couldn't keep up a monthly schedule.
Billy has not read that
one. I haven't read a whole lot of the Pad Hulk either. And I want to. I mean, it's on my list, but my list is freaking as long as my body at 6'2". So, I mean, yeah.
You know, one of the things that I like to quote, one of the things that you have said before that I like to quote is you saying that continuity is your reward for reading tons of comic books. And so I think you'd like Peter David's run on the Hulk just because of that.
I'm sure I would.
Yeah.
One writer.
Not all the stories are great, but yeah.
Yeah. That's why I really enjoy. I understand one artist maybe not being able to hang, but one writer being able to write for an extended period of time. I really dig the way that comes together because they have a vision, hopefully, and they start with that vision, and everything moves towards that the ending of that vision. And I like that continuity. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and nowadays you do have creators. Jonathan Hickman is a perfect example. You know, he comes onto a title and he's like, I got the next 10 years mapped out on this book. You know, here's what I want to do in these.
But he never does it.
Yeah, but
he does 3 years and then he jumps off and leaves his mess, and other people are like, oh, I know what he meant. No, you have no idea what he meant, because when you took it over, you screwed it up and now it sucks. Whereas Hickman wasn't sucking before you got on there. And yeah, that's.
What was Marvel graphic novel number 22? While he's answering that, you also have the creators that are like, I have a story to tell about Batman. It's going to take me 6 issues.
Yeah.
Done.
Whereas, I'm not as big a fan of that.
You know, Peter David, it's like he had things that he wanted to do, and he does these things, but it's like, they almost treated it kind of like television back then. You have an overarching story that you're going to tell, but not every issue is going to be fully devoted to that centralized story. You have
as they did with X-Files, you have mythos stories and you have other filler stories. And that is one of my favorite things about X-Files, the TV show, is that UFO abduction, that was what the show was about. But they took other cases as well, just like you normally would expect. Until they either got back to it or something else came up that directly was attached to an alien abduction or an alien sighting or something. So a lot of people want to put it down as being the monster of the month. And if you look from one month to the next, I could see that. But if you look at a whole season, or even better, you look at Fox Mulder's entire run, which was 4.5 seasons or 5.5 seasons, then you see the big story and all of these other stories, and you see bullet points for the big story. Yeah.
And it opens it up more. It makes it feel more epic. It makes it feel more like a world that's being lived in. You know, when I think about this, all these issues from Peter David that I've read, if it was like this, just one centralized story, the Hulk is just dealing with this one thing, and it's taken him 12 issues.
It would be tough.
Yeah, it's like it's too narrowly focused when they do that. And it's because of that, I think, that a lot of times I haven't been able to get into a lot of these new books recently, because it just feels like it doesn't feel like they're superheroes in a world where they have to be superheroes, but they also have to exist as regular people at the same time. It just feels more like this is a superhero world and all this crazy shit happens all the time.
Well, not only that, but you are reading nowadays a superhero story that occurs over the course of a week. Whereas Peter David's run, that was an ongoing story. Who knows how long that took to do, but because it's set, it's a limited story that I want to tell. Well, then you know that we're reading the Avengers for the last month and a half, and that's it. And then somebody else comes on and tells a 1 day story, and it's like it, yeah, it.
I got a couple of
Yuck.
things to say to Billy real quick. First, in response to this, mid 1980s Avengers, first half 80s, last half 80s. Are we talking John Buscema and Tom Palmer Avengers? Because that's my Avengers right there, baby. And then Spider-Man Hooky. I don't know that I've ever read it. I see the cover to it all the
Yes.
time,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, oh my God, this looks amazing.
Yeah, I've never read that. And plus the fact that it's like, what? Bernie writes and drew Spider-Man. What?
Yep.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Okay, Big John. Yeah, you said Roger Stern at first, and it's like, okay, but wasn't he had a number of art? Roger Stern had a number of artists, didn't he? Was Roger Stern writing Avengers when George Perez was the artist? Because I do remember some of those fondly. Stern may have been the guy that established the buddy relationship between Wonder Man and the Beast, which I always really enjoyed.
Nothing will beat the Bomber Jacket Avengers, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Cersei and Dane Whitman and Jarvis getting the shit kicked out of him. Heavy metal. That's yeah.
Jarvis getting the shit kicked out of him is just before the Bomber Jacket era, because I think Buscema is on for all of that, but Bomber Jacket was, I think, as we were getting into Galactic Storm, kind of really late 80s, maybe early 90s. I have all these epic collections, and I think that might be what I go after next. Check out the writer of a Hooky, Susan K. Puny. All right. Perez did have two. I mean, I know he had the one in the 80s, maybe late 70s, early 80s. And of course, when Kurt Busiek, after Heroes.
Oh, that was a different volume.
Yeah.
That was Avengers volume.
Yeah, that was the after Hero. That was the whole Heroes Reborn stuff. That
2 or volume 3, volume 2. Whereas the long, 400 and some issue volume 1, that was the Bomber Jacket, and that was the Wonder Man and Beast, George Perez, Ms. Marvel, and Absorbing Man, and that was some classic Avenger stuff there. A cat,
1986. Jarvis got beat down. That is my
Aubrey
favorite Avengers story of all time. Under Siege.
Yes.
Mainly because of what happened to Jarvis.
So sad. I mean, it was like, wow.
Yeah, I would have been this same time frame around, it's the same year that this Man of Steel issue came out. But so I would have been 14. I just remember Mr. Hyde beating up on Jarvis, and I just could not believe that they would let that happen. I just couldn't believe it. Poor Jarvis. I was so angry. Now I've come to learn over the last few years that part of I've of course diagnosed with ADHD and I'm obviously neurodivergent, but there's like a huge justice thing with a lot of ADHD, autistic, neurodivergent type people. They want to see fair play.
The bad guy get punished.
Yeah. It's like, so reading that, he's not a superhero. He doesn't have superpowers. How do you not have a code, Mr. Hyde?
Nope. No code.
I could not fathom that sort of evil at the age of 14.
And that's exactly what it was intended to show, is true evil. Picking on somebody that was support staff that had no power. They had nothing to do with anything, just to hurt the Avengers as much as they could.
Yeah.
They went after Jarvis.
And, oh my God, there's the scene where I don't remember which bad guy it is, but he breaks into Captain America's Foot Locker.
And trashes everything in it.
Crashes it. And there's like a photograph that went back to like World War II of somebody from his past that he can't.
He had a photo of his mom in there. The only photo of his mom that he had. Yes, and it got burnt. I think is what they did with a.
Yeah,
they burned it with a lighter or something. Yeah, that's
the kind of, when it comes to the comic book show, that's the purpose of that show, is to do seasons devoted to those types of storylines that
Okay, well there you go. There's your storyline to do. Is the
it's on my list.
Oh, I know. I have a list too. I have several lists.
Right now,
all I do is make lists.
Yeah, I think I'm focusing, of course, on Superman Super Show.
Right.
And then I'm just focusing on one other podcast at 6 episodes at a time.
That also means that you can't read it. Read it to read it and put it down. You don't have to podcast it.
Oh, I know. I've read Under Siege 3 times in the last 5 years. It's just one of my favorites.
Oh, I haven't read it in a while.
Yeah. One of my
Still favorites. Sticks with me. I haven't had to reread it yet. So
yeah.
Talk about I could talk some Avengers. Marvel is my that's my playground. I have X-Men and Avengers. A little bit branched out a little bit since then. But yeah.
Yep.
Actually, I have, except for the first 9 issues, I have an entire Avengers Volume 1 run.
Very nice.
They're one of my. So I have the first Vision. I have the first Black Panther in Avengers. Yeah. But yeah, just those first 9 issues are the ones that are. Whew.
This time period, though, 86, going into 87, this, not only was, my older brother going to a comic book store and buying comics and bringing them home and letting us read them. We also each had a subscription to 2 comics.
Okay.
Mine was G.I. Joe and Captain America. I think my older brother might have gotten, I know that the Avengers were being got at this time because, I wouldn't have read a lot of that stuff. Avengers, Alpha Flight, these Superman books. I remember those. Captain America, G.I. Joe.
After John Burton left, Alpha Flight.
No.
I don't know. It just kind of. Okay. First of all, John didn't want to do, much like maybe this Man of Steel, John didn't necessarily want to do Alpha Flight. He was kind of corralled into doing it. But what he did was so awesome. I think today even an Alpha Flight book would work if you focused on the native and mythological stories of Canadian people. I think that would work. All of this crappy new stuff that they have tried obviously has failed. It hasn't hit. But I thought that mythological Canadian indigenous mythology, the gods and all that stuff with Shaman and his daughter, and I thought that was marvelous writing. To be writing that potentially he didn't want to do. But it's like, you did a better job than anybody that came after you, dog. So
Canadian writing a Canadian team.
Oh man.
And I've never been able to get into any version. I continued to read Alpha Flight after he left because I do remember Jim Lee coming on board. I remember Box becoming more slick.
Which wasn't bad, but but it was I want to say it was Buscema that came on after Byrne.
It was Milgram at first.
Milgram.
Milgram was doing the Incredible Hulk.
They switched.
They switched, which I remember thinking, all right, well, if John Byrne's got to leave Alpha Flight, he's going to the Hulk. That's good. Great. He had a plan for the Hulk.
Except 5 or 6 issues later, he was gone.
It's because I guess he either wanted to do something that Marvel wouldn't allow him to do, or they wanted him to do something that he didn't want to do. Yeah. So that was really disappointing. But yeah. Plus, I can't. It's very hard for me to read any Alpha Flight that's not drawn by Byrne.
Oh, well,
None of them look. Sasquatch doesn't look like he should unless Byrne's drawing him. So
he is the Garcia Lopez of the Alpha Flight.
Yeah.
You know, if there is a model book for Alpha Flight, John Byrne has to be the one that is on model.
Yeah, I
John
mean, they're
Byrne.
all his characters anyway, so.
Yeah.
All
I'm gonna
right.
have to bug off, man. I gotta
Okay.
take care of a couple Russian racehorses that are kicking me in the bladder.
Billy says he's looking forward to us talking about Avengers soon. Billy, I would love that. I'd love to just get together with Ed 4 or 5 times a week and just podcast the crap out of shit. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind of time.
Billy, quit covering all that goofy movie stuff, man, and you and I can start an Avengers podcast. That'd be fun.
There you go.
Nobody watches movies anymore. What are you doing, man? Everybody reads comic books. That's what all the movies are based on, is comic books.
That's right. I'd listen to that show.
Yeah.
All right. Let me end the live stream. Bye, Billy. Bye, everybody. Bye, bye, bye.
Bye, Billy.